Edward, okay? Okay. May 7, 2018, public hearing ground rules. A public hearing is being scheduled to allow interested citizens an opportunity to express their opinions regarding the proposed sewer service fee and rates for fiscal year 2018 and 19. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Arnone?
Here.
Commissioner Bosco?
Here.
Commissioner Sakala?
Here.
Commissioner Crissati?
Here.
Commissioner Davis?
Here.
Commissioner Denny?
Here.
Commissioner Falk?
Here.
Chairman Ludwig?
Here.
Commissioner Muller? Vice Chairman Suzak? Commissioner Ungary?
Here.
There's 11 members present, none are absent.
Yeah.
They're going to do the presentation.
Yeah, so we want those guys on.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's their presentation.
All right.
Okay, we're all
Okay,
set.
sorry.
I just wanted to make sure.
Following notice of public hearing was published in the Hartford Current Friday, April 27, 2018. Town of Enfield legal notice public hearing. The Enfield Town Council, acting as the Water Pollution Control Authority, will hold a public hearing in the Enfield Town Hall, Council Chambers, 820 Enfield, Connecticut, on Monday, May 7, 2018, 6:30 p.m. to allow interested citizens an opportunity to express their opinions regarding the proposed sewer service fee and rates for fiscal year 2018 and 2019. Copies of the proposed sewer service fees and rates is on file at the Office of Town Clerk, 820 Enfield Street, Enfield, Connecticut. Susan F. Olnicki, Town Clerk. Ground rules for the public hearing. There's no time limit, but I ask that each person not take up too much time so that everyone will have an opportunity to speak. After each person who desires has had one chance to speak, we shall permit those individuals who desire a second chance. For those individuals who desire a second chance, we shall permit those individuals who desire a third, fourth, etc. Please refrain from personalities. And so, before we open the public hearing, we have a presentation first, correct? So we turn it over to Jonathan Bilmes. I'll say your name correctly. Look at that. The Director of Public Works.
Thank you. I'm not making the presentation. We're going to call up Woodard and Curran, Shelby Boschman, and Jay Sheehan, have a brief presentation we thought would be informative for the public and the council before we open the hearing. So I'm going to step aside and call them up.
Good evening.
Good evening. Jay Sheehan with Woodard and Curran. We are on King Street in Enfield.
And we just wanted, this is just to give the presentation one more time before the public is allowed to speak. Go ahead.
And who are you?
I am Shelby Boschman.
Welcome.
Okay, so we have a little background that we want to make sure we go through, just so everyone's aware of what's happening. So in 2013, the town of Enfield went out for public procurement for someone to take a look at their sewer rates. We were hired out of multiple submissions and interviews and multiple phases of that. So we did a sewer rate study, presented that to council at that time. In 2014, that sewer rate was adopted. In 2015, there was a sewer referendum of $36 million, which essentially gave an okay from the public to the town, and particularly the WPCA, to spend that $36 million. So it was a referendum to spend, it wasn't an appropriation. In 2016, the WPCF, the wastewater treatment plant, which is in desperate need of repairs, we began a design. That design was completed in 2017. The project was bid this spring in 2018, and then the cost of that capital program really began to accrue in 2019. So that's the timeline of where we are on this program. So why a rate increase? The current rates generate about $4.8 million a year. That is what was estimated, close to what was estimated for what needed to be generated based on the capital needs, all of the operational needs, back from that 2013 study. The fact is, since 2013, costs have escalated. We had an escalation, but they've escalated at a higher rate. There were also some projects that came up from various public works programs, like the streets program. When you replace a street, it's wise to replace the sewer. Those weren't necessarily in that original rate calculation. And then there's just different variables over the time since 2013. Things change. So now we know that we need to generate $6.75 million for 2019. So that's a little bit of an increase. And furthermore, that'll be $8 million by 2022 once the debt starts kicking in on the programs that are done now. So the fiscal needs include WPCF improvements, collection system improvements, pump station improvements, and then the financing expenses, that debt. So you can see there's a table here. The blue represents the operating budget. You can see there's modest increased operating budget. Things haven't gone crazy at the WPCA operations. We've got some other colors for, funds to stabilization. So that we'll talk about a little bit more, but essentially the WPCA owes the town money from prior investments or essentially the town lent the WPCA some money some years ago, and that has to be paid back. The orange bar is, the pink bar is indirect cost. Those are just a small portion of the total costs. And then there's a capital outlay in red. So you see that the capital outlay is fairly modest still in 2018, but it's going to start to grow pretty quickly 2019 and on. And then lastly, the future debt kicks in 2022 in the purple bar that I mentioned there. So once we knew that we needed to look at the rates, and there was essentially this was time, and the former the council had committed to a rate lock for a few years. The WPCA formed a subcommittee and put together some goals for that, and it was to fully fund the operations and capital costs of WPCA independently, so it's not coming out of taxes. It was to repay the deficit to the general fund, which I already mentioned. Fully break even by 2019. That was the idea, so that they'd start to be in the black, if you will, rather than the red. Build adequate reserves so that there would be self-sufficiency for years to come for the WPCA, and that there was an equitability factor. And we talked a lot about equitability, which is to ensure that all users pay their fair share, but not more than their fair share. So they're paying for the service and not anything more than that. So kind of looking backwards a little bit, there are some general notes. The sewer rate deficit to the general fund goes back to 2006 through 2008. So it was really, way before most of the councilors here were around. And we somewhat call that a mistake of the past, but it happened. That switch from ad valorem, which means tax-generated fees, tax-generated costs to pay for the sewer, to a user fee in 2014 did have a positive effect, though, a very important positive effect. It made the town eligible for grant funding, and that's about $5 million. Plus, because it also has implications on the design that we've done and all the planning. So that the design, the planning in particular was 55% that the town gets, 55% grant. And that was a $2 million planning process. So that's $1 million there too. So there's a huge benefit to having the rate system versus ad valorem. So quickly going through the process, the town said, or the WPCA, which is town council, formed a subcommittee to review the rate options. That there was a bunch of meetings. There was a lot of work done by that group, as well as the WPCA. So on March 5th, there was a meeting, March 15th, March 26th, and April 16th. And those had various, they were working meetings. They were where we came in, we facilitated some information sharing, and then the WPCA commissioners of the subcommittee participated firsthand. And those commissioners that were involved were Donna Sedgwick, Tom Arnone, Joe Muller, and Liz Davis. Very active, and we appreciate the support from that group. It was hard work, but they made it through. So the general options that the WPCA subcommittee considered were a volumetric rate increase, which means that the rates would just be increased, and for each 1% of rate increase, that generates about $45,000 to $50,000 per year. So it's kind of an important benchmark to understand. We talked about a fixed charge establishment, which a fixed charge element of the rate, which we really didn't have a lot of going in. And for each $1 monthly fixed charge is about $200,000 a year. So you can see you can generate quite a bit of money with the fixed charge. And then we talked about moving the residential charge to a flat rate, and that was considered, but it really didn't pan out in this generation. That's something that could be maybe in a next iteration of the rates, but for now it didn't make sense. So in looking at that, the subcommittee came up fairly quickly came up with some preferred options. The fixed rate quarterly charge made a lot of sense. We talked about possibly starting at $10 per month and gradually increasing it over time. We talked about using meter sizes to apply factored charges on larger users. We did talk about escalating the volumetric charges, and we talked about that as small annual increases that would help with long-term sustainability. And we also talked about, that equity piece. Well customers that don't pay, but or don't have good tracking of their wells, so they have private wells, so you can't measure their water usage in the same way. So how is it, how do we make sure that they're paying their fair share? We talked about commercial accounts. Should commercial industrial be raised more than the residential? Just that whole equitability issue was really dived into. And so what we came up with for the option, there's a lot of numbers on this table, but the column I'll draw your attention to is the current. So you see, I don't know if you can see it, in the blue, the second column over says current, and it's residential, non-residential. This is the rate change. You will see that it's being proposed that there's a 3% increase each year for the next 5 years to the residential and the non-residential rates. There's also a fixed charge being added. The monthly fixed charge shown here, the $10, comes off this table to the side, so there's a monthly fixed charge table. Most residential meters are 5/8 inch, so that would be a $10 charge for a 5/8 inch meter. And then industrial commercial would have larger meters, so you can see on down what that looks like with the other meter sizes. And that is the balancing of the rates that was recommended. So those rates and charges assume fully funding the operational costs. That was one of the base assumptions. Repaying the general fund at $205,000 a year, and then there'll be a break even in 2019 on the operational and capital outlay. What that looks like once you put that in place. So there's two lines and then a few bars on this chart. So the red line is the reserve funds balance to target. That's really where you want to be over time. You've got to get to that red line. The purple line shows how in aggregate how the town is doing getting to that red line. Those are kind of parallel lines or similar lines. The blue bars show what each year looks like. So you can see that the first few years there's still a deficit. 2019, but that deficit's shrinking, and then it eventually becomes net positive. So that will get to those base assumptions, repaying the $1 million to general fund, because it's $1 million total, building cash reserves with the idea of having a 90-day of operating costs on hand in case of emergency, and then putting the WPCA on solid financial footing for the future. So inevitably, you've got to ask, where are we now and where are we going? We did a survey of, say, 20 local communities, comparables, as we benchmarked. You can see Enfield was the third lowest cost right now for sewer. So it's about $264 a year average for a normal household. Now, it should be noted that the minimum, if someone is under the consumption level, is only about $50 a year, which is by far the lowest amount. So the minimum users were really not fully getting, paying their equitable share of sewer. So that's something that had to change as well. And you can see the recommended rate will put us about midpoint, so just below Windsor Locks, just above Glastonbury. Now, keep in mind that these rates are all going up too. So even though we'll be in that midpoint, by the time we get to 2022, I would expect it would be a little bit down because they're all moving up at the same time. And that rate's getting to be about, close to $500 is what it's going to look like a year. So there was a WPCA Commissioners meeting on the 16th of April, and the WPCA generally accepted the recommendations, which meant that we'd have a public hearing tonight, let the public talk and comment. It would also establish a fixed monthly charge, start at $10 a month. It's all those things that you saw on the blue table, the blue and yellow table. Would use that meter size, would escalate the volumetric charges over time, small annual increases, and adjust well customers to be less of a minimum. At that meeting, I think the council astutely asked, or WPCA, about the Department of Correction contribution, so the Enfield Prison. So we added this information, which is that WPCA has asked for clarification on DOC contribution. So by agreement, the Department of Corrections provides funding to the WPCF. So there's actually a formal agreement between the town of Enfield and the DOC that says that they have to pay a portion of this project upgrade based on the percentage of flow that they utilize. So we've been analyzing their flow, and the town collects that information routinely. In July, that's going to be analyzed. The town has an owner's project manager, Fawcett O'Neill, who I think you've seen before in these sessions. They're actually doing that work with the town. We expect that portion to be about 10% of the total cost, and then that has been factored into the current rate model. So when we look at projected financial performance, we expect that this new rate system will generate $6.75 million in 2019 and be about $8 million in 2023, which, as you recall, that was something that was necessary in that first or third slide. We'll fully fund the capital projects, fully fund the debt service, repay the general fund at $205,000 a year. The break even will happen in 2019, and in 5 years we'll build that cash reserve, and that puts the WPCA on solid footing. So just the next steps was the public hearing tonight. The new rates should be proposed in whatever form they are, whether they're as we're recommending or as tweaked, by May 15th for a July 1 adoption. And that's what we have. Let the public come here.
Good evening, Tom Walsh, Roseanne Street. Oh, by the way, I didn't get, the other night when we were at the budget hearing, I forgot to thank you guys. I do appreciate what you guys do. And I know it's a thankless job. And I, for one, have no problem feeding you before the meeting, so I know that was brought up. But back onto this here now. I get a kick out of the fair share thing. We're paying for water that doesn't go in the sewer. We pay for all the water. And originally, when they sold this to us in the beginning, we had to go to this form. I was under the understanding we had to go to this form so the state would pick up most of the tab for the sewer treatment facility. Now we're 5 years into it, and we still haven't gotten any money. Who's in charge of this? Who's supposed to be getting us this money from the state? And as far as this $10 fee, by 23, we're at like $17 a month. This is ridiculous, guys. Okay. Maybe our state representatives should be finding out where our money is that we were supposed to get in the first place for this. And another thing I was talking with Eddie about, here's the thing, how about a 4-family house that's got one water meter? Did they pay one $10 fee? You know, did anybody think, I know this is well thought out, did anybody think of that? You know, how about an apartment complex that water's included? They got one water meter coming into 50 units. One $10 fee? Just curious, you know. It's been 5 years, and this was supposed to be the save-all in the beginning. This, You know, when we went to the first budget hearing, I'm curious how this one's going to work out, because the first budget hearing, Mr. Koppler sold us that we were going to get a deal where they were going to average what we used in the wintertime, and that's what we would pay in the summer. And then apparently I missed it. I snoozed. I missed the second announcement for the second budget hearing, where they came up with the new plan, where they gave us a whopping 10% off, or with 7%, whatever it is you give us in the summer, for watering our lawns and washing our cars. You know, I think maybe the town, you know, they want this money. Maybe they ought to put I don't know what this meter he's talking about is, a large meter, small meter. Maybe I'd put a meter on our pipe going out of the house and charge us that way. And I also like the Windsor Locks thing. You know, Windsor Locks, we may be lower, and now you want to put us in line with Windsor Locks on there, what they pay for sewer. How about you put us in line with what they pay at a mill rate? You know, I don't know. I just think this is a joke. I mean, it's another fee, another tax on us. That's $120 a year, plus the sewer usage, plus they want 3.5 mils. Where's it going to end? You know, at this rate, with this and the tax, you're going into my pocket for an extra $650 almost. That doesn't include the cars. So I think you should think about it a little harder before you go and institute a fee on us and raise this up. Maybe. You know, we've waited 5 years now. Maybe we should wait and see what the political climate is in Hartford after November, and see if maybe we're not the redheaded stepchild anymore. Maybe we get some of our funding back. Maybe we get some of this grant money we were supposed to get out of there before you go raise all this, while we wait and see what we can get there. Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak in public hearing? Anyone else?
Jack Sheridan, 7 Buchanan Road. I didn't hear you call for somebody else. I must be getting back. This $36 million, or this referendum to spend, what's the status of that? How come we don't hear about anything about what's going on with that? And did we overspend? Why did we need to increase rates? Because we were this whole thing started because we're supposed to be meeting federal standards for nitrogen. I think that's what it was from my notes. I don't know when that mandate kicks in, but it shouldn't kick in before the money. If we're not getting the money to do this, then why should we be trying to comply to a mandate that wasn't funded, as usual? We get all these unfunded mandates. And we talk about, well, we didn't anticipate with the roads. Well, that's an orchestration problem. If you didn't orchestrate when you were doing the sewers with the roads, shame on you, or the people involved. If you go back, I heard people the other night at the budget meeting talking about how long they've lived here. Well, I've been here 60 years. And I remember paying for the sewer pipe in front of the house, saying, that's it. It goes on your taxes, you pay for the pipe, you own the pipe, right? And that was going to be it. And now, all these years later, and I understand that, you know, the growth and the things, you have maintenance and everything. I understand that, and I understand that, you know, somebody has to keep this thing running. But I don't know at what rate. I think when you start, again, $36 million is a lot of money, and we were told that the sewer treatment plant itself was adequate as far as the operations of the plant, and that the capacity-wise and everything, and that what we needed to do was some maintenance and some pumps and motors, because they were so outdated, and we were getting stories about bastardizing parts to make pumps work and everything. So I'd like to know what the status of that is. Before you guys approve an increase on everybody, I'd like to know why we need more money when we supposedly have this huge amount of money. And then we're not supposed to be borrowing the money against the town dollars. You know, it's not, it's in the statutes that you're not supposed to be doing that ahead either. So I just think you need to take a closer look. Thank you.
I have a little visual handout. Karen LaPlante, 166 North Maple Street. This proposed rate increase needs to be restructured. This is going to hit some of our residential citizens with up to 180% increase in sewer rates. And commercial customers with larger meters and low consumption will see even higher increases. A residential customer that conserves water has a typical 5/8" meter and uses 5,000 gallons per quarter is now paying $16.95. From the chart I passed out, you can see that new rate will be $47.45 per quarter, an increase of almost 180%. The average residential customer, based upon your sewer service fee schedule, uses 12,780,000 gallons. That average person now pays $43.32, and the new rate will be $74.60, an increase of 72%. That's the average customer is going to be increased by 72%. Not just some of them, the average customer. If you have a 2-inch meter, which is mostly commercial accounts, I don't think any residential, except depending on how they're classifying residential, the apartments shouldn't be considered residential. But apartment houses, complexes, larger department stores would all have 2-inch meters. And they use 40,000 gallons. Your rates will go from $169.40 per quarter to $379.60 per quarter, an increase of almost 124%. The proposed rate includes a ready-to-serve fixed quarterly charge based upon meter size. A 5/8" meter customer will be $30 per quarter, and a customer with a 3/4" meter, the quarterly charge will be $45. Customers with a 2-inch meter will be paying $240 per quarter for the ready-to-serve charge. Residential customers that have lawn sprinkler systems may have a 1-inch meter in order to provide the flow they need for their sprinkler system. And they'll be paying $75 per quarter year-round. Water utilities base service charges upon certain fixed costs such as meter reading, meter testing and replacement, bill preparation and processing. The town does not incur any of these costs for customers' meters, meter testing, meter reading, but they do have costs for billing, administrative costs, and other charges. That may be appropriate to be included into the ready-to-serve charges. The size factors listed on your ready-to-serve charge table are taken directly from Connecticut Water Basic Service Charge Table based upon their meter costs and various costs to that utility. Hazaville Water's basic service charges do not reflect those same numbers based on the upcharge for the meter size. I just want you all to be aware of that. I would like to know how the rates were determined and what costs were included in this ready-to-serve charge. Based on numbers of customers by meter size provided by Woodward and Curran, it appears this charge will provide approximately $2 million annually in revenue. Commodity charges for water companies are charges based upon treatment costs, pumping costs, electricity, and various costs of producing the water for their customers. The town does have many of these costs, but do any of you commissioners know what numbers were used to come up with the proposed commodity charges? Have any of you looked at the actual financial data over the past 4 years since we started billing for sewer fees based upon consumption? Woodward and Curran has not supplied any data publicly that corroborates how these proposed rates have been determined. I would like you to know I would think you would like to know how they justify these rates and what their proposed revenue is. If they do not have the number of customers billed, meter size, or consumptions by tier, they will not be able to project the revenue that should be generated by these rates. Water utilities and PURA require a bill analysis report by customer class, meter size, when applying for a rate increase. They use that report to actually plug in proposed rate increases, and based upon the previous year historical data, or sometimes average 5-year data, they can come up with projected revenue that will be generated by the final approved rates. So if they determine they're not going to give you money for this project or for that particular item you're paying for, they will deduct it from your cost basis, and they will not give it to you, and they'll redo the rates. There is a document online that shows billing data for 4 quarters for 2014, and the numbers for the first quarter of 2015, which was labeled as in process of billing. Has anyone asked why there is such a variance of customers being billed? Did we add 702 customers in the sewer system between January of 2014 and April of 2014? Or did we add another 964 customers in the next 3 months? And did we lose 199 customers in the 4th quarter? Hopefully, somebody from the town has reviewed the data on a regular basis and has been able to reconcile any differences in the number of customers billed. It should be determined if the past due receivables of $1.45 million is for valid customer billings or because the bills are being disputed. Because the billing is done outside the town hall, who is responsible for making these collections or verifying the data? As this number has grown over the past 4 years, I would bet it has not been on anyone's specific list of responsibilities. I would like to suggest the Commission look into providing a minimum amount of water consumption in that minimum ready-to-serve charge. That way, singles, elderly, or fixed-income people may not be hit as hard with this rate increase. I have a 2-family residence on Russell Street, and I installed 2 separate water services to serve each apartment, yet I do have only 1 sewer line. Both apartments use very minimal water, yet with the new rates, I will be paying $60 per quarter because I have 2 meters. It is costing the sewer department an additional $4.25 plus postage to print the extra additional quarterly bill. The 2-family house next door with 1 meter will only be paying $120 a year, yet I will be paying $240 a year. Are all of you aware we are spending approximately $255,000 per year to a billing company in Shelton to send out these WPCA bills and process payments? Their contract had the ability to be renewed annually for up to 5 years and will need to be reconsidered or rebilled in this next fiscal year. I would hope you will see the advantage of employing additional staff in-house to process the billing and possibly employing someone to properly manage the WPCA fund on a full-time basis. I believe by doing the billing in-house, you might be able to save $100,000 per year and be able to recoup a maximum on the past due receivables. On the budget side of things, I have a few comments and observations. Salaries are being budgeted for 2 additional operator Tier 2 positions at a cost of $112,860 plus benefits. Overtime is being increased from $102,000 to $135,000. If you're adding additional staff, wouldn't it stand to reason the overtime would go down, not up? I would suggest you look seriously at these numbers and determine why that number has to go up. Other professional services is increasing by $10,000. I have been told the billing, postage, and water company fees amount to $282,000. Where's the additional $35,000 going? I hope you guys know. Under purchase property services, what does water sewage category cover? This amount is almost $400,000. Why is it so high? Is water being purchased for the sewer plant when gray water might be able to be used? Natural gas only 2 years ago was $1,727 and is now budgeted for $12,000. Why the increase? Dues, fees, and subscriptions was $1,825 2 years ago and is now $10,500. Do any of you know why? 2017 actual budget for WPCA was $3,468,511, and in just 2 years has jumped to $6,148,114, a 77% increase in 2 years. Is anyone out there doing anything to control these costs? According to data from Woodward and Curran, in a memo to the town manager dated 4/10/18, and the town's comprehensive annual financial report for 2017, approximately 35% of the water that was processed at the sewer plant last year was not billed. 35%. That amounts to approximately 1.6 million gallons a day that we're not getting paid for. In 2016, that number was almost 40%, and in 2015, almost 31%. What was the reason for this high number? Was this an acceptable number for this industry? Are we billing everyone that is using the sewer? Has anyone really checked? In a water utility, 11% lost water is allowed. Again, my recommendations: please determine how the rates were established and the expected revenues by rate and tier. Consider including some consumptions in the ready-to-serve rates. Research as to whether all residents using the sewer system are being billed. Account for better lost water. 35% or 1.6 million gallons a day seems awful high. Make sure recommended upgrades to the sewer plant will be addressing the infiltration that may be increasing treatment costs unnecessarily. Hire a financial manager for the WPCA fund to manage the budget, set rates, and focus on the billing and collections. Consider in-house processing of data for billing and receivables, possibly by adding minimal staff to the assessment and revenue collection department. Reduce overtime costs, utility costs, and other inappropriately high items within the budget. So for those of you who don't know me, back in the 1980s, I wrote a water utility billing system from scratch for our family-owned water company. I sold the system to both Plainville Water Company and Unionville Water Company. And they were very pleased with the system and used it for many years, probably until the hardware was no longer being produced that it was written for. I also assisted the town of Somers in setting up and implementing a sewer billing package for their small sewer system. After my father retired, I was involved in all aspects of our water company, from computerizing the pump controls, applying for rate increases, and billing customers. So I feel I have at least some knowledge as to what I'm suggesting. And I hope you consider my comments and do more research before applying these rates. Thank you.
Sorry about that. All right, would anyone else like to speak? Sorry about that, Jack. Anyone else like to speak again on the water pollution control public hearing? For the first time? For the second time? Hearing none, I'll declare the public hearing closed. So I know. So Brian, just to be clear, so we pulled from the agenda from the water pollution control. Next steps?
So based on the last conversation that we had at leadership, the water pollution control rates were going to be subject to further discussion and deliberation as a one-off from council deliberation. So we do not have any scheduled legislation before council on this matter at this time.
Councilman Arnott.
So to keep it brief, and that's something that's very important, so this is not ended. Now, we are going to go back to the drawing board because unfortunately, when the rate subcommittee met, we had not seen the budget first. We did it backwards, and we apologize for that because now in light of a lot of what was said tonight, we will sit back at the drawing board and take a look at this budget and come back with a hopefully more palatable number. Is that fair enough with the rest of the subcommittee? So everybody just sit tight. This is not final tonight.
Yeah, we had assumptions at the meeting that were not valid as we move forward.
Anyone else? Councilman Bosco?
Yeah, I'm glad we're going to postpone this because I would have had a vote against it. One of the big problems, and we're going to have to discuss it ourselves here, is I'm looking at the, and I missed the first meeting, so whatever, I don't know what was said at that one council meeting when they were here. But when I built my house, I decided that I was going to put a 1-inch line going into my house because of the distance from the street to the house, and I wanted good water pressure. So, how can we penalize people for the size of their water meter in their house? And so I'm glad we're going to look at it again, and I guess that's really one of the things, because I'm not on that subcommittee, so, a residential should be residential. And to raise the rates that much, one of the things, and where they started to lose me was, we hire experts to look at things. And I was here when we did this, and, it was probably the right thing, but again, I sort of wish I didn't, because we take testimony from people like that just came up here, and they tell us that they did all this, and we're going to be good for 5 years. But they're the expert, and they didn't figure in repairing sewer mains on roads that we're reconstructing. And, as a council person, you sit back, you don't think about that. That's not my full-time job. You hire a consultant that is their full-time job, and that's the only thing they do. And you would think that they know we had a roads program coming in, and they didn't put something in there. I'll be honest with you, I think that consultants sometimes need to reach into their pocket when they make mistakes and misquote something, because they can't be coming into our pockets all the time. And it's not just you guys, it's everybody. We go and we put out for professionals to give us quotes from this to that and how to do things, and the next thing we find out was, we made a mistake, and so we go back to the taxpayers and rob from their pockets again. And that's not right. We hire professionals to do a job, and that's why we hire them. If not, we could have our staff. I'm sure our staff will do just as good of a job as some professionals that are doing it, and that really bothers me. And I know I'm probably jumping off a little bit, and I'm getting a little bit too deep, but when are consultants gonna be responsible for the missteps? And I forgot, especially when they know that there is going to be construction, and I thought we addressed a lot of that stuff. So shame on me for not knowing. And I guess the next thing is, when someone wants to get something through, they always sugarcoat everything. We don't get the whole truth, and that's another thing that gets me mad. They tell you what they want you to hear, so you put something in, and then you find out that the information you got is wrong, and the decision maybe would have been different if you had different information. But I'm done for now, and I'm glad we're going to look at it, and I know that the committee will look at it with a different set of eyes now and come to something that's more palatable, especially this year. Even if we don't pay back the money all at once to the to the town that we owes, because it really doesn't matter. It's coming out of our left pocket or our right pocket. And, 2019 would be a beautiful time to be all caught up, but maybe it needs to be 2020, 2021, and especially with this tax increase that is looming over us for this year. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Arnone. Excuse me, Commissioner Arnone. Sorry about that.
So that's the point, right there. Councilor Arnone and Commissioner Arnone. So this is something I think we all have to grapple with. Why we can is to separate this body into a body that meets once a month, can sit down and look at this budget on a monthly basis, understand it to every dime, and these things won't happen. And we'll have these updates from staff and engineering on a monthly basis. So I think that's the first real mend on this, right after we revisit the budget. And, some of that issues with we try to actually forgive the money that was owed because came from, at the time, it came from the same kitty. We can't do that for some statutory reason, which is to me. So we tried to what we did in subcommittee was stretch it out over a longer amount of time to keep those payments lower, to try to lower this as low as we could at that time, knowing what we knew at that time, not knowing the details of the budget that we know now. So again, I just want to throw that bit of lobbying out that we need as soon as we can to try to find out how to rewrite that, to rewrite our ordinance and to start separating this from our duties. Thanks.
Deputy Mayor Suzak. Excuse me, Commissioner Suzak.
See, I know. I guess for me, the referendum was for the improvements to the plant and the pump station. To my knowledge, the lines that are under the roads were not in there. So you get to a road like Bridge Lane where it's brick. We can't do Bridge Lane till we do that. It's an expense to the WPCA. It's not considered in the referendum, in my eyes. I could be wrong. I was new to the council then. So there are things that have come into this plant, into the WPCA, that were beyond the referendum. We can't just look at what the referendum was paying for and expect it to pay for everything else. That being said, the usage, we do have to go back and look at it. But I will tell you that the low-end users are not paying what they need to do. I went through old paperwork. It was obvious, well, not 1 year into the plan, that people who actually used water were paying their fair share. They were paying their bills. The people who don't use a lot of water were not supporting at the rate that they needed to be at. So when we do go back and look at it, I can't say in all good conscience that I'm not going to look at the people who really should be paying for just the service being in place. But we as a town need to look at the fact that we provide sewers. People aren't hooked up to sewers. I was stunned to see a house in my neighborhood just sold a month ago. They had to hook up to the sewer. And the only people making them hook up to the sewer was not the town, it's the bank. So now we're asking the bank to do our job. So I think we have to find out how many people are eligible and not using the sewer. And how do we make this, a system that works for everybody and works fairly for everybody? And that's always a huge undertaking. And the amount that's coming from the state, from going from Avalorum to the sewer usage, is $5 million for the clean energy. And we do work on getting that. So I think I've said enough. Thank you.
Councilman Bosco.
Yeah, and what Tom was saying, I've discussed that with him. I think we really do need to put a board together, that we have people that have sewer experience, know what it takes to run a sewer plant and have them really make the decision. I mean, we are here, we're laymen, and we take stuff and we don't really understand what it is, especially how many meetings we meet. And I think that it's time to put someone on, that knows what's going on. And I think if you have that, it's going to be a lot easier to swallow a tax increase too, because you sit here and you don't know. You hear both sides of the story, and then you say, geez, it just doesn't seem right. So I really do. I think we should look into it, and it's time. Thank you.
Motion to adjourn the Water Pollution Control meeting.
So moved.
Commissioner Arnone, second by Commissioner Falk. All those in favor? Those opposed? 11 in favor, 0 against. We're going to move right in, since we're behind, we're going to move right into the Town Council meeting, the regular meeting. Before we open up the meeting of Monday, May 7, 2018, I'm going to read a proclamation to honor Public Works Week. Okay, so Suzanne, I can do that before the roll call, correct? Yeah, okay. Proclamation declaring May 20 through 26, 2018 as Public Works Week in the town of Enfield. Whereas the Department of Public Work provides services that are vital to the health, safety, and comfort of the community, and whereas such services cannot be provided without the dedicated efforts of public work professionals, engineers, and administrators representing all levels of government who are committed to providing quality services and who are proud to be of service to the town of Enfield, and whereas the Department of Public Works is responsible for and must design, build, operate, and maintain the transportation, water supply, sewage, refuge disposal systems, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essential to serve our citizens. And whereas in order to raise awareness of the Public Works Department operations and collect food and household, in order to raise awareness of the Public Works Department operations and collect food and household provisions for local community food banks, Public Works Department work across America, across New England, are participating in the first annual Fill a Public Works Truck Food Drive. And whereas it is in the public interest of our citizens and civic leaders to gain knowledge of and to maintain a progressive interest in the public works needs and programs in our community. Now, therefore, I, Michael Ludwig, Mayor of the Town of Enfield, on behalf of the Town Council, Town Administration, the entire community, do hereby declare May 20 through 26, 2018 as National Public Works Week, Work Week. Publicly salute the services of members of the Enfield Public Works Department. Encourage the citizens of Enfield to support Fill a Public Works Truck Food Drive. Mike Ludwig on May 7, 2018. We're calling the regular meeting to order of May 7, 2018. Prayer by Councilor Bosco.
Dear Lord, last Thursday was National Day of Prayer, and many communities came together to pray. They prayed for our nation, our community, our families. May we always remember that we are one nation under God, and we need His guidance. We need guidance to lead our town, we need guidance to help our citizens, and we need guidance to make wise decisions. May God bless the people of Enfield. In our Lord's name, amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item number 3 of the regular meeting, roll call, please.
Councilor Bosco.
Here.
Councilor Sakala. Here. Councilor Crissati.
Here.
Councilor Davis.
Here.
Councilor Denny.
Here.
Councilor Falk.
Here.
Mayor Ludwig.
Here.
Councilor Muller.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Suzak. Here. Councilor Ungary. Here. Councilor Arnone.
Here.
We have 11 members present, none are absent.
Item number 4, fire evacuation announcement. In case of a fire, folks in the audience, please go exit right or left to the back of the room where the doors are, or go out to our left, your right, the doors right to the side. Go to the first doors on the left, go down the stairs, around the corner, and right out the door. Item number 5, minutes of proceeding minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the regular meeting of April 2nd, 2018?
So moved.
By Councilor Fox, seconded by Councilor Crissati. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing those by a show of hands, all those in favor? Those opposed, any abstentions? We have 9 in favor, 2 abstentions. Again, proceeding, the approval of minutes of regular meeting, April 16th, 2018. Do I have a motion? By Counselor Muller.
Second.
Seconded by Counselor Arnone. Any discussion on a motion? Hearing none, by a show of hands, all those in favor? Those opposed? Any abstentions? We have 10 in favor, 1 abstention. Approve the minutes of special meeting, April 18th, 2018. Do I have a motion to approve? By Counselor Denny, seconded by Counselor Crissati. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, by a show of hands, all those in favor? Those opposed? Any abstentions? 9 in favor, 2 abstentions. Again, approve the special meeting of April 19th, 2018.
So moved.
By Counselor Falk, seconded by Counselor Muller. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, by a show of hands, all those in favor? Those opposed? Any abstentions? We have 5 in favor? Sorry, 5 in favor? No, 6 in favor, 5 abstentions. Did I get that right? Yes, sorry. Yeah,
Susan got it.
that was close. Approve special meeting, April 23rd, 2018.
So moved.
By Counselor Falk, seconded by Counselor Muller. Any discussion on a motion? Hearing none, by a show of hands, all those in favor? Those opposed? Any abstentions? 11 in favor, 0 against. There we go. All right. All right, item number 6, special guests. Okay. If I could call up Mr. Gregory Sarantino, please.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, sir, right here. Here's your time. How you doing? Make sure this thing works. All right, so tonight we have a special guest, Mr. Gregory Sarantino, and he is the first recipient of the Mayor's Spotlight Award. And just a little bit of background on Gregory. Gregory or Greg? Greg. He lives on Collins Street in Enfield. Folks, his neighbors, so basically ask folks to send in nominations to their neighbors or businesses, and staff selects, folks from the list. And Greg, on a daily basis, this is something he does every single day, he looks after his elderly neighbors. Oh, have to use the mic. All right, sorry about that. Greg looks after his elderly neighbors. He go after garbage day, which is what day? Wednesday. He'll actually go out and return all the garbage cans for his neighbors, which is a great thing that anyone has that helps their neighbors. He also, which is pretty funny, he'll actually go out and grab the newspapers and put them on his neighbor's porch, which is pretty cool. He also, of course, will rake leaves, and if you know that section of town, they get a ton of leaves. He'll actually shovel snow for his neighbors. He'll allow some of his neighbors to park in his driveway when there's, again, when there's the parking ban on the street. He has, what I'm told, a beloved dog named Daisy. Yeah. All right, Enfield is a dog town, no doubt about it. And I think what folks need to know about Greg is his neighbors called him a humble, thoughtful, and special man who does this every single day of the year. Not has to be asked, which is what this is all about. I know many folks in this town have a neighbor just like Greg. That's the whole point of this, is to honor the good neighbors in this town. And again, it's an honor for me to present this to you, Greg. Sorry, I'm going to put this down. First, Mayor Spotlight recipient, Gregory P. Sorrentino. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much.
Great job and his family. Again, we appreciate you coming tonight and keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Nice to meet you, too.
Thank you.
Thank you, folks. You ever shake hands? Yeah, thank you.
We love it.
Yeah. Oh, it's terrible. It's getting worse.
All right, item number 7, public communication petitions. Would anyone like to speak at the regular meeting of the town council? Jack.
Jack Sheridan, 7 Buchanan Road. By the way, there is an ordinance in town that if you sell your house, you have to connect to the sewers. There's also an ordinance that if it's just supposed to be, I don't know if it's enforced or not, but if you have a septic system problem that you have to repair, it's at that time that you're mandated to.
Get your mic on. You pulled, sorry, I know,
Hello?
I do it myself, so sorry. Yeah. Should be on red.
No, it was on.
There you go, yep, perfect.
The state statute does say that, or the town, not the state statute, town ordinance says that if you sell a house and you're not yet hooked to the sewers, you have to hook. Also, if you have trouble with your septic system, you then at that time have to hook, mandated. So, just for your information. In this budget book, I had a little more opportunity to look at it since the presentation the other night. And I see pool mechanicals, I guess it's abbreviated. It says $550,000. And it looks like it's about $89,000 a year for the next 5 years. I don't understand that. I don't understand what costs so much. I understand one of them, there's something to do with the Fermi pool also. So I need to look into that. Playscapes, $400,000 for playscapes. Twice. One is Series 1B and one Series 1C for $400,000. I don't think we need $800,000 worth of playscapes, and I don't think we need $550,000 worth of pool maintenance. I don't know of a pool pump or a filter that would come anyways near that. So, and then the PCB remediation, $400,000 for 3 years? What the heck is going on? And you've got $2 million for each of the school roofs. And we need to seriously look at pitching those roofs. I mean, when you have to replace a flat roof every 10 or 12 years at who knows what cost, and then they leak anyway, put a pitched roof on and have it over with. I'd rather have a long-term fix for it that would, you know, we're talking about the average home, 25, 30-year roof, instead of every 10 or 12 years. Got to look into that. And the PCB, you know, when you're doing a rebuild of the school at JFK, that should be part of the cost of rebuilding. I mean, when I read all the information that we got on that assessment. And it says that if this PCB's there, you can seal them and keep them in place. And the only time that you have to address it is when you're tearing it out, just like asbestos, if you're disturbing it. So I don't know whether this is something that you're anticipating. Maybe the poor taxpayers will approve another referendum for fixing that school. But we have to remind the people that the original cost of doing that school was $13 million to do everything. And it's escalated out of control. So we have to keep a close look at that. And among all the other things that we talked about the other night, there's people in this town that, you know, you build the ultimate system, whatever it is, whether it's a sewer system or school system or whatever it is, at some point, you can't afford it. So what happens is if you can't afford the taxes, you could have the best school in the world and it could be empty because people can't afford to pay for it. And, you know, you can say, well, you know, I've been around a long time and they don't care whether I leave or not. Well, we subsidize the kids that are in the school system. The seniors that don't have kids in the system, it's not costing. We're paying on average $5,000, $6,000 a year in taxes, and it's not costing. You get somebody with 2 kids at $15,000 a year, that's $30,000. You pay $5,000 in taxes, so we're in the hole $25,000. So without the seniors, which are now at 51%, by the way, in this town, without the seniors subsidizing that system. And I know you're going to say, well, it was subsidized before, but you know, we used to have a tax freeze subsidized by the state. And my grandparents were on that, and the taxes were froze at the time that they turned 65. And then it kicked back in again when the house was sold. And I know now that if you do a spreadsheet, you can actually save the cost without being subsidized by anybody. You can save the cost of giving a tax freeze to the people that are 65 and older by the savings that you would have by not having to sell the houses to people with 5 kids or 4 kids and having to build more schools. So it does balance, and I've done the numbers. I know it works. So I'm just saying, before you wish me farewell, think about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Appreciate it. Would anyone else like to speak for the council? Mr. Walsh.
Tom Walsh, Roseanne Street. Mr. Suzak, I didn't realize we were only getting $5 million for that. In the beginning, when they had this, I was under the understanding we got the whole $35 million or whatever it was. So now that makes me feel even better that this was a whole waste if all we were getting was $5 million out of the deal by going to this system. We should have just left it alone and patched it as we did. Another thing, you know, we need another $9 million to just keep up with the way things are. But you know, in a normal household budget, most people, I mean, there are people that just go out and charge and get underwater. But in most, you know, you buy what you can afford. So if we can't afford something, then we just can't have it. You know, it's the same thing should be with the town. If we can't afford it, then you don't have it. Maybe we should hire somebody to be accountable for waste. I mean, just a couple things that come off the top of my head, because I go by it every day. I see us hogging out the end of Mullen Road. And I know there's a couple $100,000 spent on the, I think, it was told to me, I believe it was a couple $100,000 spent on a consulting firm to come up with that rotary deal. And then apparently whatever happened, we couldn't put the rotary in. And I used to drive trailer when I was a kid, and you know, I used to laugh when I went by and saw that little thing they put in the middle there in the Mullen Road. If I wanted to go down that road, I'd get around that. And sure enough, people did. They're breaking the side of the road. So now we spent all that money there, and we hogged it out. We spent all the money for consulting firms, and we never did the thing for the road. You still got trucks going up and down. I don't know how much that was, but it sounds like it was a few $100,000. And then the other thing is we wasted money on this building. I know this is kind of not the greatest subject to get into, but this train station, for the train that's never going to stop here. You know, I was reading an article in the paper last year sometime, and they mentioned the train to Springfield that stops in Windsor, Windsor Locks, and Springfield. Enfield was never mentioned. I know everybody wishes it would stop in Thompsonville, but why would it stop there for commuters? There's no parking down there. You know, so there's what we pay for that place, 300 grand, 200 grand for that building. So how much we got there between the Mullen Road and that, there's what, 400, 500, 600,000? That's a start to our 9 million. You know, maybe we ought to stop wasting money, and maybe we wouldn't have to go up 9 million. Maybe our taxes wouldn't have to go up 3.5, whatever it is, mils. Thank you very much. Have a great evening.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Anyone else like to speak before the council? Ms. LaPlante.
As the third member of the Taxpayers Ad Hoc Committee. No, Karen LaPlante, 166 North Maple Street. I should have left.
We're glad you stayed.
It burns me to no end. I live near Fermi. Saturday night, I got home. I drove by Fermi about 10:30 at night, and the football lights are blaring. I don't know how much it costs per minute to run those lights, but whoever is using that field, if they would please just flip the switch. I've actually gotten direction from a Public Works employee to go down, tell me how to do it, I'll go down and do it. But I don't know why the people using that field, I sure hope they're paying for those lights because they're leaving them on when they leave. I've asked for years for the tennis courts lights. Pouring rain and the lights are on. Can't we just have a push button there? I lived in East Hartford back in the 70s. They had a nice little, you put a quarter in and it runs for about 20 minutes and then the buzzer beeps and the lights go out. So you get a warning. You can put another quarter in, they'll stay lit. You can keep playing tennis. But if nobody's there, we're not burning lights. The charges for the electric rates on a demand charge commercial meter is going to be there whether you're using the lights or not. So it's a flat charge and it's very expensive. So even when we stop using those lights at Fermi, we're going to be still paying a large sum. So just because a certain number of kilowatts are being burned for that hour and a half or 2 hours, why these kids have to be out at 10 o'clock at night, I don't know. Why do they have to be practicing at night? Why can't they practice after school? It was done before we had lights. Do we really need these lights on? I don't even know what's going on at Enfield High, so I'm probably better off not knowing. I also didn't have an opportunity to really look at the budget book, and I know that's the big number you guys are looking at, and I know you've done really well and worked really hard in trying to cut costs and everything, but I still see a lot of overtime numbers in the budget, and it'd be really nice if we could cut a lot of that out. So even, you know, when the overtime exceeds another individual's pay, I would think maybe we should consider hiring another employee that can do whatever all this overtime is being charged for. You know, here we can employ another person. But I know there's additional costs to that with health benefits and all that. But I'm sure you guys can look at that and figure it out. But Conservation Commission would sure like to be able to go to our annual convention at $60 a head, and we're not going to be able to do that. So do what you can. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Mr. Peabody.
Raymond Peabody, 370 Washington Road, our fair town. First of all, again, I'm going to thank you guys for the work that you're doing. It's thankless. You're going to get beat up. You're going to get bitched at and everything else because you're going to be making decisions, decisions that need to be made. To get to where we need to be in the town may not just necessarily be the town manager's budget. We've got a very large and growing constituency in town or population of people on fixed incomes. And they're not going to be able to handle this. They're going to be going without something else. With the cost of the taxes going up, cost of health care going up, food, energy, it's just, to me, mind-blowing that we cannot put together a budget that's going to bring down that anticipated mill rate out of the town manager's budget. Some of the things that we talked about in the past two meetings, the Q&A session and the budget hearing last week, consolidation of services. What do we have for duplicate services? What do we have where we can take advantage of skills of different departments? I believe you guys are doing that from what I hear, and that's a good thing to do. Been there, done it, save jobs. Outsourcing. It's not a bad word if it's done properly. If we have services that we want to keep for our residents, the answer may be look at what we should be doing as a town, look what our neighboring towns are doing, and what can we outsource? Keep the services there, but take it off of our shoulders, the taxpayers' shoulders. Maybe we don't need to do it. The one thing that I see and seen for years is there's a modification of the culture of some of our employees. I hear they go to a certain supplier, $25,000 check written out for 25 grand, but they only spend maybe 21 grand. But they're told find, $4,000 more worth of things to buy. That culture has to change. And that does happen. I think people who are involved with various organizations within the town of Enfield know that, or they hear about it. So that's a culture issue. That's a training issue. It's an HR issue. The lady that talked about the lights on at Fermi. Recently, we celebrated Earth Week, and back in my day, back in the early 70s before disco, we celebrated Earth Day. And we conserved energy. We went out and we did the things you do. What kind of message are we sending if we don't, just something that's very public like lights being on, and they're still on in the middle of the night and nobody's there? And yes, when I was a kid, we used to pay 25 cents for about a half hour's worth of basketball court and a couple of other courts up at Forest Park. The last thing, well, not the last thing, but facilities plan. I got a glimpse of it today. I appreciate us having a direction to create a strategic plan to deal with the facilities footprint that we have in the town of Enfield. The one thing that I said last week, I'm going to repeat tonight, do we really need to spend $125,000 for somebody to come in, look at our facilities, look at the utilization, look at the things that they look at, and then make a recommendation? I kind of don't think that that's the best use of our funds right now at this point in time. The other thing is, and this is really going to make me popular with a whole bunch of people, I'm sure. In the coming weeks, you're going to be looking at the town manager's budget. You're going to be looking at coming up with an alternative budget. An alternative budget should be targeted at, and I would anticipate it being targeted at lowering that mill rate. However, with that comes a whole bunch of hard decisions. You're in those seats because we as the voters trust each and every one of you to have the ability to make that hard decision. And the charter says if you don't vote on an alternative budget, the town manager's budget will automatically be implemented. Am I right in that? Okay. Just wanted to be sure, 'cause I'm a little forgetful these days. So, for those of you who may be planning to do a block vote, don't do it, please. That's not good. I heard that rumor going around, Tom.
See, that's rumors.
And that's why I'm addressing it, because it ought to be a rumor.
Sorry. This isn't the
And I'm going to address it in my next statement. All you guys work well together, just like the board does. So, in my thought, it's you guys are working as the town council. And I have absolute confidence that you're not going to do that. I have absolute confidence that you guys are going to come together, come to a consensus, and put together and do what's right for the town of people, all the residents, not just certain special interests. And Tom, I didn't mean to get you all riled up there. If you just let me finish. So I wish you the best, and good luck in the next few weeks, because I think you're going to need it and need our prayers as well. And just remember, and everybody in this town should know this, it's not a town council fault. It just isn't. But you guys are sitting there with a big steaming plate of stuff to deal with here. And good luck.
Thank you. Anyone else like to address the council? For the first time? For the second time? Hearing none, I declare public communications closed. Item 8 will be councilor communication and petitions. Anyone like? Councilor No.
So two things tonight on public comment, and if we have knowledge of any employees doing anything that's questionable, that should be reported directly to the town manager immediately. And I really take personally when politically people come up here to take jabs at other political parties. No room for that. I went through this at our last open meeting, that each and every one of us are going to do everything we can to make sure that those tax bills that come out are reasonable. I've got a family. I come home every day. I pay my taxes, paid my taxes religiously for all the years I've worked here and lived here. So I really take that personally when political minions come up here to barb us. We're going to vote. We're going to vote our hearts.
Councilor Falk.
I serve on many subcommittees at CROG, and they're having their annual meeting on June 13th, and they are soliciting for an award called the Intertown Cooperation Award. And I don't know if we as a town actually do things in conjunction with other towns, maybe the ambulance service or things of that nature. But if we did, we could possibly get an award for that if somebody wanted to fill out the application and submit it. The other thing I'm on is a trauma-informed school mental health committee, and we are currently in the process of surveying groups, organizations, and individuals associated with, again, it's kids, to identify the current situation in order to develop a corrective action plan for the future. So it's a long, involved process, but it is addressing the mental health issue, which, again, affects a lot of the problems that we were having in this country. Also, as part of their weekly report, they stated that the General Assembly is due to adjourn on May 9th, and hopefully at that point in time we'll have a clearer picture on exactly how much money we'll be getting from the state. Also in that report, the state received a $2 billion windfall from the federal government, and I'm hoping that somehow some of that will work its way to Enfield. And also, the House voted to adopt a bill that would prevent the governor from reducing grants to school districts once the school budget is implemented. That's a good one. So, anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Sakala.
Thank you. Through the mayor to the town manager, I know that the football lights have been an issue before, so if you can have that looked at, that would be great. I don't know who needs to be talked to. I don't know if it's a Ramblers thing, if it's a Public Works thing, or a school thing. I don't know, but if you can get that handled, that would be great. But I do have good news, which is few and far between tonight. So I would just like to say that on April 21st and then April 28th, both softball and baseball had their opening days. And I would personally like to thank DPW and the Buildings and Grounds. They did a wonderful job of prepping these fields, going above and beyond, because if you remember, you probably don't, but the night before softball's opening day, Friday, it rained all day, and they did a wonderful job prepping the field. So I thank them a ton. The families, there's probably, between the two associations, over 500 families. So thank you very much, and please extend my gratitude and the association's gratitude. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Crisati.
Okay. I want to thank everybody for coming up and stating a few of their opinions in regards to the budget and some of the, accountability. Tom, a couple of your points you made were well taken in terms of, watching what we're doing and overspending on some certain projects that are going on. Also, Karen, with the lights, there are organizations that rent both the fields, and they do have night activities that are going on. And sometimes they're on till 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. They rent these fields out. We just have to make sure that these lights get turned off. I kind of like the idea of putting in quarters to keep the lights on, which I think is a money-making thing for our, extra money on top of the rental of the fields. And also your insights to the water pollution control and some of the information that you gave us tonight was eye-opening to myself as being new to the commission. Mr. Peabody, rumors. If you think that everybody in their conscience is, going to be looking at an increase of the mill rate without us, saying what's right for the people. We're going to do what's right for the people. When I hear of a no vote on the budget means you're in favor of a 3.5% mill increase is not going to take place with us sitting up here. One thing that I'd like to hear a little more on the facility consolidation recommendations, as somebody had mentioned previously. I do want to say, off this budget topic, it's nice to hear the number of employees in the town taking advantage of the biometric screening that's been offered. You know, we're talking about positive health for our employees, and the number of employees that are taking advantage of this and thinking about their health to help us with, you know, our insurance needs, our health insurance needs, and staying healthy and active. So I think the May 8th and May 9th, additional screenings are going on. Record numbers of employees are taking advantage of that, and I think that's a good thing for our town. Okay, that's it for now. Thanks.
Councilor Ungar.
On another complimentary note, Enfield High did The Music Man a short time ago, and I'd like to commend Glenn and Sue Reese. They directed the whole play, and the kids just did a wonderful job. Their comedic timing, the props, the backdrop, the costumes, it was just amazing. It was so entertaining. It was wonderful. Also, I wanted to compliment JFK. This past weekend, they performed Aladdin, and those kids did a great job. It was under the direction of Kristen Fitzsimmons, so I give a kudos shout out to her. And the same performance, it was just outstanding. It was funny, it was humorous. I loved the part where they're floating around on the magic carpet and all the stars are shining. They did a great job with that. Also, the principals and the vice principals did a cameo appearance each performance. Someone showed up, and it was just a nice surprise. They did a great job. So thank you to the schools.
Councilor Falk.
One more. At the last meeting, we approved a change to the ordinance for display of street numbers, and I asked for some specific information, and it was available somewhere if you wanted to look for it, and I wanted it to be on TV. So I'll read this to you. The change that was passed was changing house numbers from 3 inches to 4 inches in height, and a minimum stroke of a ½ inch. And the contrast in color has to be with the background, not necessarily a generic black or white. And addresses shall be in Arabic numbers or alphabetical letters. The numbers shall be visible from the street which it relates, where access is by means of private road to the building address cannot be viewed from the public way. A monument or pole or other sign or means shall be used to identify the structure. And the street numbers shall be affixed either on top or to the side of the most main entrance of the building facing the street. If the building is more than 100 feet from the road, an additional like number shall be displayed on the mailbox, post, or fence along the street line, clearly identifying the property. If affixed on the mailbox, the number shall be replaced on both sides of said box. That's the detail of the change. Thank you.
Councilor Bosco.
Through the mayor to the town manager. I drove down Post Office Road today, and it looked like they were cutting out for a walkway at the intersection, like we were told was going to happen. But the problem is, I see they curbed right over the area. So I just don't want them to forget to cut the curb out where the sidewalk goes before they pave the road. So just a little reminder about our walkway there. And Brian, I probably stoked up a big beehive, and I don't want rumors getting out there that are not there, but I tried explaining how the budget worked. So can you explain to everybody, probably in a more soft-spoken, straight tone, on how it works? Because sometimes I get a little gruff, and you know how your budget is approved, and what we're really going after is an amended budget. But if the amended budget doesn't pass, what that means. So this way, everyone just understands really how it works. That you know, really, we're going to be voting on more or less on an amended budget, because if we vote no, your budget defaults. So I just want to get it done from someone that speaks a heck of a lot better than I do. Thank you.
You want to do that town manager report? Yeah, okay. Deputy Mayor Zuzak.
I just have a couple of things first. I had a resident call me. They live on Queen Street, and they're back to town land, and I assume it might be some conservation land. Now, if we have dead trees that fall on the neighbors' lawns, do we take care of that, or is that whoever it falls in is the expectation that they take care of that? Okay, and I guess I don't know. I read the PAR. I love the PAR. I mean, you can get caught up on everything that's on our main list of really large projects that we're doing. But we have one thing that just, it's not on the PAR. It's something that we get a lot of questions on, and it's when people damage town property, like the guardrail on North Road, like some of the damage that is done here and there around town, and we're waiting for insurance companies to work all those things out. Could we kind of get a list that's like, I don't know, it keeps the residents, they have some place to go where they can look to see if they've made any progress in having these issues resolved. And I guess the other thing is our roofs aren't replaced every 10 years. They're replaced, right now, it looks like every at least 30 years. So our roofs are 30 years old. The new, what you call flat roofs, will have more of a pitch because they will be to state standards. And we will be hopefully starting the roofs this summer. So keep tuned. We're working on trying to solve some of our roofing issues. So, and I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules and move items A, 1 through 4, B, 1 through 2, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, P, to miscellaneous and proceed to vote.
Second.
So moved. Motion by Deputy Mayor Zuzak, seconded by Councilor Falk. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, by show of hands, all those in favor? Those opposed? Motion passes 10-0. Anyone else have anything? Councilor Davis?
First, I want to thank everybody that came out and spoke. A lot of knowledge. I took a lot of notes. Through the mayor to the town manager, if we could get an update on Barnard, on the OSHA report, or what has been done. I know some stuff was cited. What actually has been done, I didn't see that in the PAR, so I did look on that. I want to say Saturday, thank you to the community. I did the Homefront project, and it's amazing. I guess there was 3 homes chosen, so the home that I was at, it's like 40 volunteers from our community showed up. And to just see the calling, when somebody in our community needs something, it's just like, and that's what I love about Enfield. We're not just a town, we're a community. And here comes everybody right to doing siding, putting in hatchway. We did all doors, countertops, you know, painting interior. I mean, it was amazing from a start to a finish. And so thanks to everybody with that program and the community that came out and really put in a helping hand, because that was 7 in the morning to like 4 in the afternoon. So it just shows, you know, it's great to live in Enfield. To remind everybody, this week is Teacher Appreciation Week, so when you see a teacher, 2 little words, thank you. You know, it goes very far with them, and they do an amazing job, and so I'd like to say thank you to all our educators out there for all that they do. And then a reminder for this year's Relay for Life would be May 18th, 4 p.m. is the kickoff, to May 19th, and it'll be in Sunny's place in Summers. They canceled the Suffield one and consolidated 2. So I hope to see a bunch of people out there. We have a lot of Enfield teams there, our JFK teams there. We have Girl Scout teams, Boy Scout teams, Enfield High. I believe Whitney's got a team there too, so it'd be nice if people come out and walk the laps to bring awareness for cancer. I believe that's it. Yeah. Thanks.
Anyone else? Brian, just in closing, 2 quick questions. In the part of the Strand facade work, any chance you could, in your report, give what that is? And it says it's starting this week, so just curious what that is. Again, I just want to thank Joan Marsh and all the staff at Prune Scrandall for inviting me to read a book with the Kid Mayor She was obviously pronunciated better than I did, which is not really saying much, I guess. But again, I think, again, it was great to be invited, and it was a good turnout, and appreciate the invite. And again, if you just maybe in the par, just talk about what may be happening at the Strand this week. Okay. We're moving on. Item 9, Town Manager Report. So you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Included in the council packet is the PAR, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions or concerns that you might have regarding the content of that particular report. A couple of things I did want to touch base on. Abbey Monument, for those of you that don't know, we've been working, I think, about a year and a half to try and document our relationship with DOT in the presence of the monument within the right-of-way. It appears that all of that has been resolved. The new contract has arrived, and we'll be bringing that forward at the next meeting with the assistance of the Town Attorney's Office. I did want to note, speaking of the Town Attorney's Office, included on the action items tonight is the Memorandum of Understanding between the town and the fire districts on the tax collection and distribution relationship that we have. The town attorney has asked that that item be held until the next meeting. There were a couple of items that he wanted to go over with me in my office, so if you would be conscientious of that. Councilor Cruzati, thank you very much for stealing my thunder on the biometric screenings, which are tomorrow and Wednesday. Our employees are doing an outstanding job of taking better care of themselves, and it actually resulted in a net decrease in our insurance premiums this year. So there is a significant savings to the town taxpayer because of that. So I did want to call that out. The top 10 troubled properties was on my list of items to touch base with. As you know, about a year ago, staff, we assembled a list of 10 properties that have been rather, well, troublesome. That have not been resolved through our conventional blight or code enforcement methods. So we've begun doing work on several of those properties. You'll notice improvements this week at the Church Street properties. Vehicles are being removed, items and waste are being collected off the property. That also includes the Strand work. And at this point in time, the plywood and other boarding materials that are up that are relatively weathered, those will be coming down. New materials will be going up, and that'll be getting a quick coat of paint as well. So if we're going to own it, we might as well do our best to make sure that it looks nice. And then there's some other properties that are also in some form of process. 1 Knox, 315 North Maple, 46 Cottage Green. There's a few others on that list as well. So you'll be again seeing physical work at those properties starting this week and next. So I did want to touch base on those items specifically. Excuse me. With respect to fallen trees, yes, if our tree does fall on someone else's property, we will resolve that issue. So whether or not that could be reported via C-Click Fix, or if you could send in an email to my office, we'll be more than happy to get working on that.
Thank you.
On the issue of big stuff that gets damaged, this falls into the land of the way we've always done it. And in this particular instance, there is no documented way we've always done it. So a few months back, we did recognize the fact that there was no policy in place on how the town could recoup the expenses from these types of incidents. So we did engage a work group that involved Chris Wardrop from Travelers. There's a draft policy that's been put together. I believe it's scheduled to be distributed this week to the staff that participated in the process. So we are looking for ways to try and recoup expenses incurred by the town at other folks' negligence. So this is a particular policy that will be coming into action here soon. Let's see, what else is on the list? Councilor Davis, with respect to Barnard School, I'm not aware that the formal report is back from OSHA. I did get a call, though, today from the superintendent. He did not leave a message, so that could be one of the reasons that he was calling, but I don't know yet. Once we do have the final and formal report, I'll make sure that you all get a copy of that. And I will also ask that the Director of Public Works prepare a more detailed statement with respect to the exact work they're doing, not just in the targeted rooms where issues have been reported, but throughout the whole school. So I'll get a detailed report for you and share that with all of council as soon as we can get that done. Beyond that, I think there was, Councilor Bosco, your question with respect to the budget, explaining how that process works. In short, I prepare a budget, I submit that budget to council, and I ask for you to review that budget. Under the way that the charter works, that if you do not make any changes to the budget that I submit, then the budget that I submit goes into effect as presented to you. So you can amend in part or in whole any portion of that budget from the time that it is submitted to you for your consideration up until the date in which it is adopted. So I believe that we provided you the budget, I want to say April 12th, and then we are required to make a presentation to you about that budget, and then your opportunity to deliberate and amend that budget begins. And the first scheduled deliberation that you have is actually tomorrow evening downstairs. So, if there are items that council thinks are inappropriately represented in my budget, whether or not they're too robust or whether or not they are not funded appropriately, whatever council's pleasure is, provided that each issue garners at least 6 votes, you can amend that, and what you amend will affect what the tax rate is, so whether or not it goes up or whether or not it comes down. So it's not so much whether or not a yes vote or a no vote is for or against. It just simply impacts what the total composite is, and that composite is everything from what the mill rate is to what the services are provided. So it's all possible that 6 of you could say that 3.5 mills is not enough and it should be 4, but everything that I think, or that I've recommended that the money should go for, you should tell me, you can tell me I'm crazy and it should be something totally different. So maybe it's not playgrounds at $400,000, maybe it's playgrounds at $4 million, whatever 6 votes will get you. So a lot yet to go in the process. So I think based on the conversations I've had with leadership, what I have presented is not what will eventually be enacted on the 21st. So a lot more to come.
So I guess what I'm just trying to get across is we're really voting. It doesn't matter if we vote yes or no for your budget. Your budget really is the default budget. It's what we're going to be voting on is either to increase the mill rate or decrease the mill rate from your budget. So if we vote yes for your budget, and it's whatever mill rate you did, if we can't come to an agreement on how to lower it, and we vote no, your budget will just default and become the budget. So I know everyone here is, because they're going to be paying too, is going to be trying to work to an end to come to a something that I guess is palatable. But it's just very confusing how our budget works, because really a budget is set. We're here to either increase it or decrease it, and that's what we're voting on. And if we vote no, and we get 11 votes, then your budget goes in default, correct?
So my budget is the base budget. It is the starting point, and
Correct.
all you do is vote to amend it. So just because you may vote no on a proposed amendment does not automatically mean that the budget goes into effect,
Correct.
nor does it
But
mean...
if we get 12 no's, really, it's approved. 11 no's. Well, actually, he was.
Oh, I'm confused.
If we get 11 no's, it's actually
We're pointing Chris tonight. That's a 12th member.
So, right.
I guess where I'm going at is this is going to be a terrible, terrible, terrible budget. And the easiest thing to do is to say no. But it really doesn't pull us forward if we decide that the right thing to do is to decrease the mill rate. So, we're going to take heat on a yes vote, and we're going to take heat on a no vote. There is no right vote here. The only thing is we as a team of 11 have to pull together for the town and try to get this mill rate down as low as possible. So that's where I was trying to explain. It's very confusing, even when I first got onto council. I mean, what do you mean? If I vote no, it could be yes? So that's what I wanted to get out. And this way, everybody out there in the taxpayers are going to understand what we're voting on is a tough thing. And there is no easy, quick way out of it, because even if we all said no, we still got it. So that's what I was trying to get across, because I just hate any of us, people say, well, you voted me a X amount of mill increase, and, well, no, we voted you a decrease. But yes, we did. We're going to have to vote yes for a budget to give you a decrease. So that's what, and I probably got everyone confused again, but anyway, we're done. I'm done.
Real quick, and you know, political 101 on this is 6 votes. You've got a majority party and a minority party. You got 5 votes here, 6 votes there. So you can accuse all you want. We're still the minority party here, so there's no block. On the Abbey Monument, I've noticed the benches are almost black in color with soot. I know a couple of years ago, Bill Lee did, you know, a real great community deal with his family, and he cleaned the monument. He actually cleaned the Abbey himself. What are we going to do to clean the rest of it? It's really a terrible. I don't know if we have a monuments, you know, committee or somebody that cleans these regularly.
Right. So the what we are going to do, what we're going to propose and bring forward, is, if you will, a sister agreement with the Congregational Church where the monument sits in front of. So the congregation has need, or I should say a want, to leave its sign within the right-of-way. And so in a partnership with them and DOT, we are going to contract basic maintenance for the Abbey Monument to the folks at the Congregational Church. And so we'll be having those nice folks assist us with those types of services. So it'll be basic maintenance. It won't be things like, you know, the bench is cracked and it needs to be repaired, or, you know, the good Mr. Abbey's nose has fallen off and we need to fix that. You know, these will be things like sweeping and cleaning and making sure that basic maintenance is done on a regular basis.
I thought it was a mowing and everything. So
Correct,
actually,
yes.
if those benches need to be cleaned, we're going to have to deal with getting some an agreement between the church and us to get it cleaned. Well, whether we give them the chemicals to do it or whatever, and they can get volunteers to clean it, I'm not sure.
Right.
But something needs to be done. It's a beautiful monument, and as you drive by it on Route 5, which is a beautiful street, you know, I just had compliment from somebody that just came through town and never uses Route 5, always uses 91, so they got diverted off the highway on one of the accidents we just had the other day, which they seem to be doing more and more of, closing 91, which is good for Route 5 because somebody fell in love with that street, and it's kind of an eyesore to see that monument in that shape. So if we can get that looked at, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure.
Councilman Denny.
Yes, through the mayor, the town manager, an update, can I get an update on 15 Debbie Lane? And that house has fell down and they put a fence around it. I don't know if we're proceeding to knock the building down, or we're just hanging out, and maybe the town attorney can address that situation also. I think there's some legal situations going on. I'm not sure.
Sure. So the short version is that the town doesn't budget funds for these types of remediation efforts. So the town is, however, in this particular instance, getting ready to release an RFP for demolition services related to the Church Street property. So once we are able to identify a vendor through that process, it's our intent to be able to utilize that bid and provide for an alternate to include the Debbie Lane property in an effort to maximize the limited dollars we have to make them go further and address the Debbie Lane property. So that will be to follow the RFP on the Church Street property.
Councilman Bosco.
Yeah, when Tom said something, it brought something to me. When we get these accidents on 91, that they're diverted, and we have to put our people in place. I know there was a statute because there was an environmental spill, and I hope we're going after the money we spent for overtime on that tanker. But I've asked before, and I'm going to ask again, why can't we charge for the overtime? I know the fire departments were able to get something. When we have to put our policemen directing traffic because of the traffic going down the highway, why can we not bill the insurance company of the person who was involved in the accident or the car fire or whatever? I'm not talking something for a 15-minute closure, but you get a fatality up on the highway, that could be closed for 4, 5, 6 hours, and we're calling in overtime, and we should call in overtime, not deplete our people out there that we have. And why can we not, if we have to call overtime in, bill for the officer to sit there to direct traffic to make sure our town is safe and the people driving through are safe? So if I can get that answer and why, and
So every particular accident or situation is different, but I do know in the case of the accident up here off of 5 that involved the tanker truck, we did submit as part of the North Thompsonville's overall request for reimbursement, we did submit hours for reimbursement for being on scene to handle traffic control.
And I'd like to know if we can, if we can tag off of that statute, because I know it said something about environmental. But if there's another way, because, we have an officer there and they shut the highway down, there should be a way that we shouldn't be taking patrol officers and have them direct traffic, especially when we know the highway will be closed for several hours. I'm not talking, the hour at a time. But when we know it's going to close for several hours, we should be calling police officers in on overtime and billing the insurance company of the people that got in the accident or whatever caused it, so the town is held harmless on that. So if Chris can look at that, that'll be great. Thank you.
So Brian, just in 2 quick things. For the next council meeting, I know that the folks who, with the solar farm are going to be before us. Is there a possibility we can move them to the June meeting? We're going to have a pretty full meeting, and I think most folks here like to focus on the budget on the 21st. Just my opinion, unless you guys disagree. I think just to give that presentation its due attention that it needs, can we push it to the first meeting in June? And then, again, try to lighten up a little bit. I was reading something. How close is Maridale to Sikorsky or Ohio? Is it close? I heard the world's tallest new just opened roller coaster malfunctioned in your neck of the woods.
So yes, the world's tallest roller coaster in Sandusky, Ohio, a mere 3-hour drive from Moraine, Ohio, is indeed.
We're making sure you're prepared to handle that.
Yes, sir.
All right. Sorry. Item 10, town attorney report.
Just briefly, I already had reported last time we had sent out that we're going to be doing a training for all of our land use boards. I think it's going to be very informative. That's going to be coming up in June. We've had a good response from all of our commissioners that are going to participate. And then I sent one out recently in regard to the freedom of information that we do, yearly. And we've sent that to everybody and invited them and expanded it to town hall and council. That's going to be in June. So if you need the date again, we can send it. And that's important to keep up with all the updates and new people on boards and commissions to take advantage of that. And I think that's it.
Any questions for the town attorney? Hearing none, moving to item 11, report of any special committees of the council. Councilman Muller.
The Joint Facilities Committee met. We've had several workshops with JCJ to develop a revised conceptual renovation design that we must have submitted to the state before June 30th.
Okay. Any questions on that? Any other reports of any special committees? Hearing none, item 12, old business. Item A, appointments, town council. 1, I'm assuming stays on the table on page 1. On page 2, any appointments from items 2 through 15? Hearing none. On page...
We didn't do 14.
I said 2 through 15. Yep. Sorry, we have an appointment?
Sure.
Okay, we have an item 14, Enfield Culture Arts, a vacancy due to the resignation of Matthew Sylvester. Replacement would be till 5/31/2018. Do I have a motion to remove from the table? Councilman Owen, seconded by Councilor Denny. Do I have all those in favor of removing from the table? By show of hands? Those opposed, we have 11 in favor. Is there against? Do we have a nomination?
Yeah, I'd like to nominate Joshua Humry.
Second.
We have a nomination, a second by Counselor Arnone, seconded by Counselor Sakala. Do I have any discussion? Motion to close nominations? So
moved.
Counselor Falk, seconded by Counselor Denny. All those in favor by show of hands? All those opposed? Any discussion on the nomination, the main motion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Bosco.
All four.
Counselor Sakala.
Josh Hamry?
Counselor Crisati.
4.
Counselor Davis.
4.
Counselor Denny.
4.
Counselor Falk.
4.
Mayor Ludwig.
4.
Counselor Muller.
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
4.
Counselor Ungary.
4.
Counselor Arnone.
4.
There's 11 in favor, none against, and no abstentions.
Item 15 on page 2 remains on the table. We move to page 3, items 16 through 22. Any nominations? Hearing none. Item B, appointments by the town manager on 1 through 7. Any appointments from the town manager?
None at this time, sir.
None from page 3. We move to the, top of page 4. We have items 8 through 12. Again, any nominations from the town manager?
None at this time, sir.
Item C is, again, resolution dissolving the Enfield High Building Committee. I'm assuming it stays on the table.
Correct.
Item D, Macy's stays on, the Macy's discussion stays on the table. Item 13, new business. Item A through D, I don't see any new business. Item 14 is items for discussion. And item A, 1 through 4, has been moved to miscellaneous. It's the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve items A1, A2, A3, and A4?
So moved.
By Counselor, Deputy Mayor Suzak, seconded by Counselor Arnone. This is the consent agenda. Real quick for folks, these are transfer of funds from various, presentation of food for our younger folks at the schools. And that's it. This is by a show of hands on the consent agenda. All those in favor by a show of hands? Those against? We have 11 in favor, 0 against. Under miscellaneous, item B1, Ethics Commission alternate, a vacancy exists. Do the appointment of Carl Swenson to the regular member. A replacement would be till 12/31/2019. Do we have a nomination? Someone?
David Kopeck.
We have a nomination by Counselor Falk of David Kopeck, seconded by Counselor Muller. Any discussion on the nomination? Motion to close nominations? Deputy Mayor Suzak, seconded by Counselor Muller. By a show of hands, all those in favor of closing nominations? Those opposed? 11 in favor, 0 against. Any discussion on the main motion of the appointment? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Bosco.
4.
Counselor Sakala.
4.
Counselor Crisati.
4.
Counselor Davis. 4. Counselor Denny.
4.
Counselor Falk.
4.
Mayor Ludwig.
4.
Deputy Mayor, I'm sorry, Counselor Muller.
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
David Kopak.
Counselor Ungary.
4.
Counselor Arnone.
4.
There's 11 in favor, none against, and no abstentions.
Okay, we have item for miscellaneous B2, Enfield Cultural Arts appointment. The term of office of Damon Patone expires on 5/31/2018. This would be a reappointment of Mr. Patone. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
By Counselor Falk, seconded by Counselor Arnone. Any motion to close nominations?
So moved.
By Counselor Falk, seconded by Counselor Muller. All those in favor of closing nominations by a show of hands? 11 in favor, 0 against. Any discussion on the reappointment on the main motion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Bosco.
4.
Counselor Sakala. 4. Counselor Crisati.
4.
Counselor Davis.
4.
Counselor Denny.
4.
Counselor Falk.
4.
Mayor Ludwig.
4.
Counselor Muller.
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
David Patone.
Counselor Ungary.
4.
Counselor Arnone.
4.
There's 11 in favor, none against, and no abstentions.
Okay, we move to item E, a discussion resolution, request for transfer of funds for the police department of $15,000. Be it resolved in accordance with Chapter 6, Section 8F of the Town Charter, the following transfer is hereby made. To Police Services uniforms, 102-00500-56500 of $15,000 from Police Services Professional Development, Vehicle Repair, Travel, Food, Other Equipment, and Miscellaneous Expenditures. Counts 102-00500-5322000 or 5,000. 1-200500 of 543300 of 3,000. 1-02-00500-558000 of $2,000. 1-02-00500-563000 of 1,000. 1-02-00500-573-900 of 2,000, and 1-02-00500-589-000 of $2,000. Certification by the above funds are available on May 1st, 2018 by our Director of Finance, John Wilcox, approved by Town Manager on May 2nd, 2018.
So moved.
By Councilor Arnone, seconded by Councilor Denny. Any discussion on the motion? I know, Brian, if you want to add a little color.
Color, perhaps not, but pinstripes for sure. The chief has convened his committee of personnel who review and evaluate professional standards with respect to dress. The chief and the committee have made a recommendation to update the uniform and cycle out the more casual BDU uniform, which are the pockets on the outside, the cargo-looking pants. They want to move to a more functional Class A slack, which is the more traditional dress pant with a pinstripe down the side. In this particular instance, because the personnel have already been provided their clothing allowance, the chief thought it was appropriate that to make this change at this time, he thought it was important that the department pay for those new slacks, and so he's pulling this money together from accounts that are going to be under target this year. So,
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Councilor Sakala.
Before I make my comment, I'm going to make the disclaimer that I make this comment being a huge supporter of our police. That being said, in the budget that we have coming up and the budget crunch that we're in right now, I find this poor timing. I understand it's only $15,000. I understand that they're taking it from their own department, but it looks like they could have done some other things with that money. Again, I have a lot of respect for a lot of the things that the new chief is doing and implementing, but again, this is poor timing in my opinion.
Thank you. Any other discussion from anyone? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Councilor Bosco.
For.
Councilor Sakala.
Against.
Councilor Crissati.
For.
Councilor Davis.
Against.
Councilor Denny.
For.
Councilor Falk.
For.
Mayor Ludwig.
For.
Councilor Muller.
For.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
For.
Councilor Ungary.
For.
Councilor Arnone.
For.
There's 9 in favor, 2 against, and no abstentions.
Moving on to item F and miscellaneous, discussion resolution canceling selected regular meetings in July and August of 2018. Resolved that the Enfield Town Council does hereby cancel the regular meetings of the council scheduled for July 16, 2018 and August 20, 2018, prepared by the Town Manager's Office. By Councilor Arnone, seconded by Councilor Falk. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Councilor Bosco.
For.
Councilor Sakala.
For.
Councilor Crissati.
For.
Councilor Davis.
For.
Councilor Denny.
For.
Councilor Falk.
For.
Mayor Ludwig.
For.
Councilor Muller.
For.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
For.
Councilor Ungary.
For.
Councilor Arnone.
For.
There's 11 in favor, none against, and no abstentions.
Moving on to item G, a discussion resolution under miscellaneous. Resolution authorizing the town manager to apply to the Connecticut Department of Housing for Homeless Shelter Diversion Pilot Program funds for fiscal year 2018 and 2019. Whereas the Connecticut Department of Housing released funding, through the Federal Small Cities Communication Development Block Grant for homeless shelter diversion programs. Whereas the Department of Social Services submitted a non-binding letter of intent to apply for funding for a regional mobile homeless shelter diversion pilot program on April 11, 2018. Whereas the town could be eligible up to $50,000 in financial compensation if the grant is funded. Resolved that the town manager, Brian R.H. Chetkowski, or his designee, is authorized to submit the grant application in a name on behalf of the town of Enfield with the Community Development Block Grant and to affix the corporate seal. Date approved April 27, 2018, submitted by Don Homer Bouthier, Director of Social Services. By Councilor Denny,
Second.
seconded by Councilor Arnone. Any chance, maybe
Yep.
we have Don? If Don, would you mind come up?
Yep.
And thank you, Don. How you doing?
I'm lit. I mean, the light's lit. Sorry. Sure. Happy to answer your questions.
Not sure that was in the record or not.
No. On TV.
Floor's yours.
Oh, so floor is
So
mine.
yeah, just a little background, and I know.
Sure.
You know, just
so
for folks.
this is actually an opportunity. It's the first time this money has been released by the state. Traditionally, they actually turn back a lot of the block grant money to the Fed. So they're trying to figure out a way to try to support families, in particular, who might be homeless from entering the shelter system. So we kind of got together and talked about the need in the region, and this would be a regional approach, Mayor, where we would serve other communities, and folks would be mobilized in cars to go out to where the homeless folks are. We'd be getting referrals from the 211 system, which is how folks get into homeless shelter services. So we're working that out with United Way now, and they would simply make a call. We'd go out, visit the family or the home, and hopefully get folks rehoused before they have to go into a shelter situation.
This is actually a proactive program, basically what you're saying.
Yeah, and it's the first time, it's a pilot program, so
Right.
this is a one-year kind of, let's see what we can do for folks. So there'll be a lot of data, there'll be a lot of, back and forth with our friends over at the Housing Department. CHR runs a similar program in other communities, and so we would like to work with them in partnership for this. The communities would be up the 91 corridor because there are no shelters here. The Manchester shelter and the Vernon shelter were both closed last year due to lack of state funding. So we have a lot of resistance from the folks that we work with who are homeless here in Enfield about going into the Hartford shelter system. So we're hoping to find a way to reduce the trauma in the families, in particular with the kids, to get them resituated as soon as we can. And CHR has a lovely little grant that they've already received from the State Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services, so they can help with security deposit and other things that we don't have the funds to do.
Yeah, I appreciate you being on board on being proactive and utilizing what I think is a fantastic infrastructure of social services to, again, be ahead of the game when it comes to some of these regional services that I'd rather be out in front of it than being on the back end of absorbing it. So I appreciate you being committed to that.
Thank you.
Sorry, Councilor None.
So this differs so much from just a shelter situation where we ask places to go, have people to go. So you're actually going to try to get them home, apartments, whatever it takes, and job opportunities too. I think
So
that
a lot
goes
of it
along
is
with it.
trying to mediate that situation. So we have a lot of folks who, if they lose a job or whatever and they can't afford the rent, they kind of, house themselves with family members or friends. They do a lot of couch surfing. So what they found from doing this work in other communities is that if you can help somebody mediate the situation with a family member or a friend, then that helps short term, and then we can help them with some longer term plans for housing and get them restabilized as fast as we can. It
and
is
jobs
truly.
and the whole
Yep.
gamut to keep
Yep.
them going throughout the
Yeah, as
their
much
lives.
as much as the caseworker can do. It'll be a relatively light touch, but they found that has worked in other communities.
That's the way to go.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Great.
Thank you.
Councilor Falk, then.
I was hoping that you could give me a little bit more clarification on exactly what it is. It's a mobile homeless shelter. What is that?
So it was an opportunity for us to help folks who are homeless here in Enfield, obviously, but also in the surrounding communities. What we did was look up some of the data for the month of March, because that was the most current data we had available in the 211 system. So there were 84 referrals into the shelter system from Enfield and the surrounding communities, Windsor Locks, East Windsor, Summers, and those communities. And so what we wanted to be able to do is to work with CHR so that we can provide almost a mobile. It's like a hotline. You call the hotline, and then somebody gets in a car and drives to where that homeless person is. We were conscious that we wanted to provide the best service available for folks, and most folks want to be served in the community that they live in. So we didn't want to necessarily have to bring folks into the High Street office for service. We wanted to be able to meet them kind of where they were. And so that's the intent of the mobile component. And no one's actually tried the mobile piece of this, so the Department of Housing is actually quite interested to see how this type of service works. Because rather than having them come to us when they don't have transportation and other resources to get here, we will go to them.
When I hear the word mobile, I immediately think of trailers.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, mobile like in a
So I'm thinking,
car.
where are the trailers coming
No,
from?
no.
Where are you going to park them? Who's going to use them? How long will they stay?
No.
It's not trailers.
No, it's people driving in cars to help other people.
Okay.
Yep.
That clarifies it. Thank you.
Sure.
All set? Counselor Crissati, then Counselor Bosco.
I like the idea of the mobile, you going to the people. I think it's less intimidating for them if you're going to help them, especially on recommendations. Now, this is the Enfield Housing Authority?
No.
Or is this through the state?
This is the State Department of Housing.
So, okay, so, for example, the Vernon Housing Authority would be part of this?
It's not so much the
program?
housing authorities, because most of those facilities that they run are full. That's why we have folks who can't get into them. So we'd be dealing some of folks who are on the waiting list for those facilities, some of the folks that we know who live in some of the locations like down by the river and other places like that, to see if we can get them housed, as opposed to just kind of letting them hang out.
Okay, so I guess, I like the idea, but to get them actually housed, do we have actual housing for them?
So we don't have any housing. We do try to house folks and rehouse folks. I think the difference with the folks that we think we'll be dealing with the pilot is they're not necessarily going to be the chronically homeless folks that we're dealing with currently in our caseload here. That's a much different population.
Right.
These are the folks who, might have just, been one paycheck away from not being able to make the rent, and they've been recently, unhoused, or they're living in a car.
Okay, so a displaced family for a short period of time.
And we're going to try to work, of course, with our Safe House here in Enfield to make sure that folks fleeing domestic violence do have a priority for service as well.
Great. I think it's a great idea. Great program.
Thank you.
All set? Counselor Bosco.
So, just for clarification, we are not starting a homeless shelter.
Nope.
Is this going to be something that's going to be funded solely through the grant? Because I'm sure there's going to be a lot more homeless people when we get done voting in that tax increase everyone's going to get.
Well, we hope that's not the case, but so this would, as I said, be a pilot program. So what I anticipate is going to take a little while to get up and running, as it does with anything that you try new. And renewal funding will be based on how well we do this year. So if we don't get this grant again, people will just default into the statewide system through 211 for shelter services.
And what communities are we gonna?
We have reached out because we looked at the data. I didn't think I brought up the map, but Summers, East Windsor, Windsor Locks, Enfield, just kind of the corridor up from Windsor. Windsor, Bloomfield, those communities are already taken care of. But our neck of the woods up here, we don't have a lot of resources for homeless folks.
And are we going to need more staff to do this?
No. One of the most interesting things I found out about this grant, unlike many of the other grants that we do, is you can actually charge off some admin expense. So we are going to be able to offset some of the salaries for our existing staff with this, based on the work that they'll be doing on the new program. That's for you, Mike.
Your thinking is
There you
spot
go.
on. I mean,
We're trying.
I'm on board.
Okay.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
And seeing as this is a pilot program, if the funding dries up and it doesn't work next year, we can get rid of it?
Yeah, it would be no impact. I mean, the impact would be the families, obviously, and they'd have to go through the 211 system, which assessment and a lot of other things, and waiting for homes. But yeah,
Well, that's good. That was a solid no.
yeah, it's a no.
But I'll support this tonight.
Okay. I think it's a proactive program. What Don's saying, as we're trying to build our infrastructure to generate revenue on things that we deliver better than anybody. And I agree with you, there's some savings there. And oh, by the way, we're actually being proactive, and everything in the marketplace is going back to the community. This is exactly what you're doing. You're going back to the community. So we're trying to go and help people where they're at.
Yep.
And so they're not unfortunately end up in places where we don't want them to be.
Or the kids don't end up traumatized in school.
Right.
So I think those are the other pieces that we hope to shore up, is to providing a certain base for the families to work
And
on.
again, I appreciate your thinking, because
Thank
this
you.
is exactly what we need to do to be ahead of the game when it comes to revenue and programs, so we don't get roped into regionalization in the wrong way.
Yeah, and we'll be happy to update in the PAR, obviously, as we move forward with this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, appreciate it. Thank you very
Thank you.
much. Any other questions for Don? Again, thank you.
Sure.
Yep. Any other questions from anyone? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Bosco. 4. Counselor Sakala.
4.
Counselor Crissati.
4.
Counselor Davis.
4.
Counselor Denny.
4.
Counselor Falk.
4.
Mayor Ludwig.
4.
Counselor Muller.
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
4.
Counselor Ungary.
4.
Counselor Arnone.
4.
There's 11 in favor, none against, and no abstentions.
Item H under miscellaneous, discussion resolution resolving amending the seasonal teacher aide job description. And this is simply to bring it up to current state code and regulations to amend the regulation. Resolution approving the amended seasonal teacher aide job description. Resolved that in accordance with Chapter 7, Section 2 of the Town Charter, the Enfield Town Council does hereby amend the job description of the following position. Amend seasonal teacher's aide. Date submitted 4/27/2018, submitted by Don Homer Bouthier, Director of Social Services. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
By Councilor Nolan, seconded by Councilor Falk. Any discussion on the resolution? I think this is straightforward, unless anyone wants a description? No? Roll call, please.
Counselor Bosco. 4. Counselor Sakala.
4.
Counselor Crisati.
4.
Counselor Davis.
4.
Counselor Denny.
4.
Counselor Falk.
4.
Mayor Ludwig.
4.
Counselor Miller.
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
4.
Counselor Ungary.
4.
Counselor Arnone.
4.
There's 11 in favor, none against, no abstentions.
And just so folks know that a copy of the job description is part of the resolution, so if anyone seeing it out in TV land, it will be posted in the minutes. Item I, resolution authorizing the town so this item I stays on the table, correct? So we don't have to have a motion to keep it on the table, it just stays on the table, correct? Suzanne, right? Yes. Okay, item I stays on the table, that's the MOU that the manager mentioned earlier, subject to some revisions by our town attorney. Apologize, going to item J, resolution requesting a bid waiver for the procurement of a temporary truck washing facility. Whereas work will soon commence on a permanent truck wash at the DPW facility on Moody Road. And whereas the town is required by the Connecticut DEP regulations to wash its trucks at a permanent facility, and whereas the town current contract with Post Office Road LLC for truck washing facilities will expire on June 30th, 2018, and whereas Post Office Road LLC's facility is currently the only suitable facility located in Enfield, and whereas Post Office Road LLC has agreed to negotiate an extension of the current contract until the new municipal facility is operational, now therefore be it resolved that in accordance with Chapter 5, Section 8, Paragraph D, the Enfield Town Charter, the Enfield Town Council does hereby determine that it is against the best interest of the town to require competitive bidding for rental of a temporary trucking washing facility. Date prepared on April 26, 2018 by the Department of Public Works.
So moved.
By Councilor Arnone, seconded by Councilor Muller. Is Jonathan still here, or? Yeah.
Oh, you.
Yeah. Sorry, come on up, sure. Yeah. Yep. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Members of the council.
Just name and jobs, your name and just job title.
Mike Slazik, I'm the Business Operations Manager at DPW.
Welcome. Councilor Denny, sorry.
When we're keeping the same people,
Yes.
is the price staying the same?
Well, we haven't had authorization to negotiate, but I don't believe it's going to go up. If it goes up at all, it'll be very nominal. Their interest is not to soak the town. I think this is done sort of as a service to us.
Well, I understand that, but I just, the way it reads that we're bid waiver in the procurement of temporary truck facility, and we're renegotiating with the same vendor, which is in town, and I understand all that. But are we keeping? I like to know if it's going to cost us any more money.
We haven't talked price with them yet. I don't feel we've been authorized to at this point.
Okay. I guess my comment,
I know
you know what I'm saying. I guess my comment is
Yep.
I don't feel comfortable with saying, okay, this is great, but I'd like to know what the cost is.
Yep.
And maybe we need to table this, I don't know.
Okay, fair question. Deputy Mayor Suzak.
Well, maybe we authorize them to negotiate it, and if it doesn't look fair for us, then we walk away and we come back and we do a bid. I mean, just because we give you a bid waiver and we allow you the ability to go out and solicit a price, doesn't mean you have to accept it, right? So how's that, Ed?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilor Bosco.
I'm all for the bid waiver, but really, you should have came with a price with us before you came here, and I'm not comfortable voting on something that I don't know a price in, and that was your job to bring us the price when you came up in front of us. So I'd like to see it tabled, and I have no problem with it, but I'd like to see a number attached to it before I bid for it.
Okay. All set?
If I may, there's no change in the price. This is simply extending the term of the agreement while we construct the current facility. So we'll have our own permanent facility, which is why we didn't go back out to bid.
Right, so price isn't going up
So
at all.
price is not going up. This is just to extend the contract because the term of the contract is expiring. It does not reflect a change in price.
Thank you.
Big clarification, Counselor Arnone.
So my question is, this is probably something that's been sitting on the burner now, I don't know, Joe, how long? I mean,
Well,
tens of
I think it's
years?
been what? Oh, please. I told
long
Pia
time.
back in 2007, to do it. I told him right before the big storm to do it, and we've been sitting on it, and nothing got done. And it's been what, 3 months or so since we had a DPW meeting on this,
Right, are
and
they gonna
now
get-
they wait to the end.
Are they going to get a deduct meter for this? But when is it going to get done? Because that'll be like a milestone for me, because this thing has gone on for so long to get this truck wash up and running. And I know it's been an issue monetarily, and it's really an important thing. So is there an end date on this? Will I see it in my lifetime?
We hope you'll see it either the end of this year or early next year. The RFP is currently out. It'll due the end of this month, so we will have a contractor in place probably early next month, and the hope is to break ground as soon as possible.
Great.
After we have someone in place. Can we finish it before the snow flies, before it's too cold to work on it? We hope to, but if not, it would be finished in the spring.
Okay, thank you.
I apologize, this is probably a very dumb question. But we throw salt and sand on the roads after it snows. Again, that flows into, I'm assuming, unfortunately goes into the drain when the water, when it melts, and I'm assuming may go into the river. So why is the DEP more worried about us washing the trucks than what we throw on the road? And maybe maybe it's not a fair question to you, but it seems,
Oils.
I don't know, it
Well-
seems silly of the DEP, where, I mean, I'm just, observation, that's all it is.
It's not just the salt and we don't use sand. It's not just the salt, it's also grease on the trucks. We have to have a facility with a grease trap. When we wash trash trucks, there's sanitary issues. So there's lots of reasons we have to have a permitted facility.
Cool. Okay.
Mike, there's an aquifer out there where they are.
Isn't it? Yeah.
That's why they need it.
Yeah. Thank you very much for being here and answering the questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Folks okay in voting? Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Roll call, please, Suzanne.
Counselor Bosco.
4.
Counselor Sakala.
4.
Counselor Crisati.
4.
Counselor Davis.
4.
Counselor Denny.
4.
Counselor Fall.
4.
Mayor Ludwig.
4.
Counselor Muller.
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
4.
Counselor Ungary.
4.
Counselor Arnone.
4.
There's 11 in favor, none against, and no abstentions.
Item K and miscellaneous, resolution to appoint audit firm for fiscal year 2017-2018. Resolution to designate an independent auditor to audit the books and accounts of the town of Enfield. Whereas Chapter 3, Section 2 of the town charter states the council shall annually designate an independent public accountant or firm to audit the books and accounts of the town. And whereas the Director of Finance solicited and reviewed bids for such services in 2017, and the audit firm Ron L. Bellaloo and Company was appointed to audit the town's accounts for fiscal year ending 2017 and for the subsequent fiscal years ending 18 and 2019, in accordance with the following fee schedule: Year 2, $46,000; Year 3, $46,000. Now therefore be it resolved that the Enfield Town Council does hereby designate the audit firm Ron L. Bellaloo and Company to audit the town's accounts for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2018, in accordance with the above, and for the subsequent fiscal year as stated above, subject to an annual designation by the town council, prepared on April 30th, 2018, by the Director of Finance.
So moved.
Second.
Counselor Falk, seconded by Counselor Arnone. Jonathan, anything you want to add color to on this, or? Okay? No? Okay. Any questions on the motion? Okay. Hearing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Bosco is out. Counselor Sakala?
4.
Counselor Crisati?
4.
Counselor Davis?
4.
Counselor Denning?
4.
Counselor Falk?
4.
Mayor Ludwig?
4.
Counselor Muller?
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak?
4.
Counselor Ungary?
4.
Counselor Ononi?
4.
There's 10 in favor, none against, and no abstentions.
Item L, under miscellaneous, discussion resolution, creating the Town of Enfield Municipal Facility Sinking Fund. Whereas Connecticut General Statute, Section 7-148C, paragraph 2, parentheses 2K, empowers municipalities to create sinking funds in which monies therein do not lapse at the end of the municipal fiscal year. And whereas the Town of Enfield desires to establish a sinking fund for the purposes of accumulating the financial resources to address the capital needs of town-owned facilities, excluding those dedicated to educational purposes. Now therefore be it resolved, the Enfield Town Council does hereby create the Municipal Facility Sinking Fund, and be it further resolved that said fund shall be solely dedicated to addressing the capital asset needs of all town-owned facilities, excluding those dedicated to educational purposes. And be it further resolved that capital assets are generally described as, but not specifically limited to, all property, plant, and equipment defined by the Federal Accounting Standards Advisory Board, equal to or exceeding value thresholds as established by the town, which are structurally, functionally, or mechanically necessary to provide a structurally safe, secure, and healthy environment for conducting the non-educational business of the Town of Enfield, prepared on April 5th, 2018 by the Town Manager's Office.
So moved.
By Councilor Arnone, seconded by Councilor Crisati. Any discussion on the motion? I don't know, Brian, if you want to, any quick, sorry, go ahead.
No,
Yeah.
if he wants to give his
Yep.
first, please.
Sure. So, as we have previously discussed at several different public venues, this is one of 3 pieces of legislation that will set up funds, accounts, apart from the general fund, where the town council can transfer money for specific purposes, in this instance, facility repair and maintenance. And the monies that are there will continue to accumulate over time if they remain unspent. The funds that are assigned to these, the monies that are assigned to these funds or transferred to these funds are also more flexible. So currently in our capital non-reoccurring, we designate money for town roofs and town doors and town windows, and here it just goes into the town facility fund. And so if roofs happen to be the big issue, the money goes to roofs. If next year the big issue happens to be windows, then the money goes to windows. But the funds are specifically defined and dedicated to the purposes ascribed here in this particular legislation and in the subsequent pieces of legislation on tonight's docket.
So Brian, I would, if I could, is it okay, I'd like to add an amendment as we talked about. Again, maybe after therefore be resolved, the Enfield Town Council does hereby create the municipal sinking fund and have it specifically spelled out in the annual financial audit. I want to make sure that every audit, no matter who our auditor is, that they're commented on all 3. I want it the same, or something along those lines for all 3 of these funds. So again, we're reporting to the public. If we say, to your point, we're using on windows and town facilities, we are reporting back that that's what we're using for.
Sure.
I don't know if my language works or there's more specific language, but I'd like if folks would indulge me, I'd like it actually part of the resolution, so it's part of our annual financial audit. So what do you want to say? That it's
audited.
That it's, included, specifically included as part of our annual financial audit. After, therefore, be it resolved, the Enfield Town Council does hereby create the municipal facilities sinking fund, and before it's be it further resolved.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, if it pleases the council, and just brief consult with the town attorney, you can actually table these until the next meeting, and then we can insert the language for you. It'll be reviewed by his office and approved by his office, and you can just act on these 3 pieces of legislation at the next meeting.
And we'll send the language in advance, too. We'll work on it immediately so you can see it. But I would like to talk to John and make sure it's language that's legal and doesn't change the intent or what we're trying to do, but accomplishes what the mayor has suggested you want included.
I know I want all 3 to be specific. You're a lawyer, go ahead, comment, sorry. Yeah, okay.
That's why I wanted to know specifically what you wanted, where you wanted it, and
I just want us to make sure that we are, whoever the auditing firm, whoever the council is, this is, again, we are spending the money exactly what we're saying we're spending the money on.
which I would agree with.
Okay.
I concur with Chris.
Sorry, any other questions on this? So if we table these three, Brian, just want to be clear again, procedure, we're voting on a budget on the 21st. Does this have to be one of the first? So I want to make sure, so if we're making the amendments to the budget first and then doing this after, so how's it going to work on the 21st?
So this particular legislation would need to be listed on the agenda first in advance of any amendments that the council would adopt with respect to the budget.
Does this move automatically to old business?
Assuming you make no further action on it, I believe that it would stay right here where it is on the agenda as item for discussion.
Are we okay with that, Suzanne? Will we be in, okay. I mean, but I'm saying then the amendments to the budget will be after this.
Correct.
Okay.
Motion to table? All three?
Deputy Mayor Suzak, you had a question?
We have budget workshops coming up. Should we have a special meeting and just vote on these three once legal has got that? So that we know that the sinking fund exists?
You don't want our next meeting to be a lot longer? Come on.
I'm trying to, because when we look at our budget deliberations, we're going to look at the sinking funds that we want to create. And I don't want to have a gray area when we're looking at the budget. I just would feel better that maybe, because we're all going to be there, if we have a special meeting right before, we could get the insertion of the legal language, we vote on it, and then we continue our deliberation. So when we sit here to vote on the budget, we're not creating anything else. We're just looking at the budget.
So you want to answer it, and then Counselor no, and then go ahead.
Yeah, so I don't understand why these wouldn't be audited to begin with. So Finance Director sitting right there. I'd like to have an answer on this tonight.
I was going to suggest that, too, that I would think they would have to be, but if you want something more specific, but maybe John can address it, and if it already is going to be, which I think they would have to look at all funds, including these, but John could opine.
I don't think that's true, though. Yeah.
Well, we probably can't, and that's...
Well, no one seconded, though.
No one
Right.
seconded.
No. So there was a motion to table, but there wasn't a second, so can we continue to? Yeah, okay, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay. Typically, in an audit, they do audit all town funds. What you're asking for is a special report that would also be issued, and that would generally be an additional, probably have to be added on and be additional cost, whatever, to it. I'm not sure what the cost would be. It would have to be put into our request for proposals, and, I think it could be done.
So
I would suggest that if we're going out to bid currently, that
we're not going out to bid.
When will we be doing it next?
Well, the earliest would be next year.
So if we're going to do that, could you wait? I mean, this won't be in place until then. I think if you indicate to the council now that you're going to include that in to the proposal, and they're acknowledging they want to pay for it, we want a special report, that would suffice, and then we could pass them this evening with the proviso that he's going to include it going forward.
Councilor Sakala, then Deputy Susan.
I guess before we even get there, I would want to know is if this language that the mayor wants to add, is it redundant? So, because if it's completely redundant, then it sounds like it's not necessary. And if it's not necessary, then why do it? Because if it's going to cost us more money, even though it's already going to happen, then I don't know that it's necessary. So I don't know who can answer that. I think perhaps you guys just need to have a conversation offline and then come back and let us know if it's redundant language or not.
I think John can expound, but I think what he just said is they would not do, you'd have to pay for a special report. They would audit all accounts, but for what the mayor's purpose to really clarify that everything in that fund was spent for its intended purpose, I think is more than the general audit would include. So
really?
I think that's what he said.
That is correct. Typically, they would deal with they would perform their audit procedures, testing whatever expenses they determine are required. issue their audit report. The audit report will include those funds, but whether they actually do any testing on those would be dependent on their selection criteria. If we wanted them to, then they would have to tailor some specific work to that, and typically that would be an extra fee.
So
go ahead, Debbie.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know. I guess what I'm hearing is, do we audit our CIP?
No, we don't. That's the issue.
They typically look at expenses that are paid out and do review of the supporting documentation involved in those. They make selections. They make sure what is supposed to be coded, applied to grants is applied to grants according to our the A133 audit and the state and federal single audit, basically. They test the selection of those expenses and make sure that they are properly supported. Did we issue the proper purchase orders? Did they get the proper authorizations? Did we charge the grant correctly for them?
What's more flow of money?
No, it's then they look at, if they pick an expense, one of our larger expenses are typically capital related, so they would look at those. If they happen to get selected in their random reviews of our expenses.
I might suggest, given the cost and the breadth, I don't know if it's really their bailiwick and expertise that you're looking for. I think we've been talking all evening about accountability and knowing what is occurring in some of these projects. Perhaps you could just simply say that you're going to direct the manager to give you an accounting every year on these three funds for what expenditures, and you're going to want to break down every year before the budget.
Thinking, to your point, so we could add this as part of our budget resolution, that these funds, so maybe you don't do it through the auditing, but we do it through the budget presentation where these
I think you can, why don't you create the funds this evening, because I understand you'll be very busy, you don't want to be distracted, and then you can come up with a policy later that is informed by a show of hands that the manager could work on, because he has nothing else to do before he leaves, and it would just simply say that these three funds will be...
First project I'm hearing? Yeah, first project.
Or I'll work with them, and we'll come up with a policy that's clear that we have to have a way to safeguard it with finance as well, so that it won't fall by the wayside, that it will be given to you every year what the expenditures were.
My only intent is that we went through back in the glory days years ago where we had all the money in a CIP and projects did not get done, and here we are 25 years later having the issues that we have, and if we're asking people we're going to fund these funds, I want to be able to show people that whatever we say we're going to do, we're doing it.
Well, maybe you want to look at a similar policy for the CIP then.
Sorry, go ahead.
And don't we have to approve every one that comes out anyway? So it all has to have council approval, anything that comes out of these funds. So, these are, and, very important that we form these. So I know you only have a week left and one meeting left. Yeah, you only have one meeting left. So I wanted to take this opportunity, too, to say, along with the sinking funds, your funding for capital improvements, your PAR, and your facility plan, which I don't really agree with a lot of it, but it's a great start, is part of your legacy and what you're going to leave to Enfield. It has actually improved Enfield and will improve Enfield for many years to come. So in 2 weeks, if I don't say anything, that's why I wanted to say it tonight, because this is an appropriate time with the sinking fund, that these are exactly what we need to make sure costs are spent where they should be spent and not thrown into the big old pot in the middle and then diverted where we need them as our own little pet project, so to speak. This stops that, and I can't thank you enough for getting this program and those others I mentioned in your short term here. So officially from me, good luck and thank you.
So I'm okay with leaving it till, because again, the only purpose is just to make sure that this doesn't turn into what it turned into in the 90s, where we allocated this money, nothing got done, and we never reported on it. That's all. That's only my intent, so I thank you. I wasn't trying to, appreciate it. I think that's enough discussion. Sorry about that. Roll call, please.
Counselor Bosco.
4.
Counselor Sakala.
4.
Counselor Crissati.
4.
Counselor Davis.
4.
Counselor Denny.
4.
Counselor Falk.
4.
Mayor Ludwig.
4.
Counselor Muller.
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
4.
Counselor Ungary.
4.
Counselor Arnone.
4.
There's 11 in favor, none against.
So item M is, again, the creation of the Town of Enfield Infrastructure Sinking Fund, item N. Whereas, item M, excuse me. Whereas Connecticut General Statute, Section 7-148C, parentheses 2K, empowers municipalities to create sinking funds in which monies therefore do not lapse at the end of the municipal fiscal year. And whereas the Town of Enfield desires to establish a sinking fund for the purpose of accumulating the financial resources to address the capital infrastructure owned and or maintained by the town. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Enfield Town Council does hereby create the Public Infrastructure Sinking Fund, and be it further resolved that said fund shall be solely dedicated to addressing the capital assets needs of all town-owned facilities and or maintained public infrastructure. And be it further resolved that public infrastructure is generally described as, but not specifically limited to, public roads and highways, sanitary sewer and stormwater collection systems, the continued maintenance of those public roads and highways, sanitary sewer and stormwater collection systems, environmental remediation, land acquisition, demolition, stormwater and flood mediation projects, including such projects on private property when determined to be necessary for public health, safety, and welfare, and the enhancement of public waterways through improvements that allow for greater public access. Date on April 5th, 2018, by the Town Manager's Office. Councilor Muller, seconded by Councilor Falk. I think we discussed I think we're good. Suzanne, roll call, please.
Counselor Bosco.
4.
Counselor Sakala. 4. Counselor Crissati.
4.
Counselor Davis.
4.
Counselor Denny.
4.
Counselor Falk.
4.
Mayor Ludwig.
4.
Counselor Muller.
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
4.
Counselor Ungary.
4.
Counselor Arnone.
4.
There's 11 in favor, none against, and no abstentions.
Again, under items for the, miscellaneous, discussion resolution creating the Town of Enfield School Facility Sinking Fund. Item N. Whereas Connecticut General Statute 7-148C, parentheses 2K, empowers municipalities to create sinking funds which monies therein do not lapse at the end of the current municipal fiscal year. And whereas the Town of Enfield desires to establish a sinking fund for the purposes of accumulating the financial resources to address the capital needs of town-owned school facilities. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Enfield Town Council does hereby create Schools Facility Sinking Fund, and be it further resolved that said fund shall be solely dedicated to addressing the capital asset needs of all town-owned school facilities. And be it further resolved that capital assets are generally described as, but not specifically limited to, all property, plant, and equipment defined by the Federal Accounting Standards Advisory Board equal to or exceeding value thresholds as established by the town, which are structurally, functionally, or mechanically necessary to provide a structurally safe, secure, and healthy environment conducive to education, prepared on April 5th, 2018, by the Town Manager's Office. By Councilor Denny, seconded by Councilor Crissati. Any discussion? And just one last thing for folks to know, this is actually a way for us to start funding projects on, again, without having to go to referendum every single year, where we can start doing projects, again, piece by piece, again, to get them done, as opposed to simply asking the taxpayers every year for a referendum. That's the other purpose of this fund that I think folks need to understand. Deputy Mayor Suzak.
I'd also like to hope that, further councils, when these do get established and they do get expended, that when funds are returned back from grants, if they're used in conjunction with any grants, that those monies would go back into the sinking fund and not into the general fund.
Hearing no further discussion, roll call, please.
Counselor Bosco.
4.
Counselor Sakala.
4.
Counselor Crissati.
4.
Counselor Davis.
4.
Counselor Denny.
4.
Counselor Falk.
4.
Mayor Ludwig.
4.
Counselor Muller.
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
4.
Counselor Ungary.
4.
Counselor Arnone.
4.
There's 11 in favor, none against, no abstentions.
Under miscellaneous, item O, discussion resolution authorizing the town manager to sign a letter of engagement and fee agreement with Scott & Scott. Whereas the national opioid epidemic has directly affected the residents and taxpayers of the town of Enfield in both human toll and outlay of funds to address the lasting impact of the opioid addiction, and whereas the town council wishes to take affirmative steps to attempt to alleviate the financial burden of the opioid epidemic on the town's resources in the way of public health and safety, as well as social and human services, by holding opioid drug manufacturers and distributors responsible for their actions, and whereas the law firm Scott & Scott has experience in representing other municipalities against opioid drug manufacturer and distributors, and whereas Scott & Scott has come highly recommended by the town council and by other municipalities, now therefore be it resolved that the town council does hereby authorize the town manager to sign a letter of engagement and fee agreement with the law firm Scott & Scott to pursue a civil action in Connecticut Superior Court. Date prepared on May 1st, 2018 by the town attorney's office.
So moved.
By Councilor Arnone, seconded by Councilor Crisati. Before Brian or Chris? Chris?
Well, over the last year or two, I know the council has been very, very concerned about bringing every weapon to bear in fighting this epidemic or this plague. And of course, it's national in nature. These attorneys are premier in the area. We had spoken with another firm in the past. The council had many more questions than answers. These individuals came and addressed the council, and I had known the concerns and the queries about the legalities and proximate cause and proof and damages, and all of those questions were answered. I think we would all agree quite ably by the two attorneys that came from Scott & Scott that evening. I'll just state that we had no knowledge of the firm prior. We did do our due diligence in looking into their background. They supplied references, about 10 of them, in Connecticut, Massachusetts, that are part of this litigation and another litigation across the country. We call them all, and unhesitantly and glowingly, every municipality, the town attorney or town or city attorney we spoke to said they're just fantastic. What I would say is, I think they're very dedicated. This is not a silver bullet, but I think it's a strong, as I said, another bow in our quiver. It focuses on a state action. They're going to limit the number of clients nationally to only 20 or 30. Springfield, to our north, Worcester, New Britain, New Haven, and us, because it's really a regional issue. And I'll just say that I think their philosophy is right, but what they've told us is that while it may be the worst man-made plague in history, which was created by the pharmaceutical companies that we're going after, it's really the legacy cost in the future that is going to persist for decades as a result of the addictions, the treatments, the relapses, the impact on families and children, which we know, looking at our school budget, is already starting to kick in. So it's those residual and collateral costs that are going to be experienced by our town and others across the nation for a long time to come. So I think this evidences the council's willingness to try to use anything available to them to try to at least make an effort to combat the problem as best we can. I think this is a tool. I think these people are very capable to do it. The manager's office has a press release he'll release in the morning, which will expound further and explain a little bit more and give some further information and statements. But I think it's one good, powerful step to try to redress the wrong that has been perpetrated on our young people, and not just young people, but people of all ages who have been brought into addiction, which looks to have been done by a willing and knowing pattern by corporations for profit. So it's not, as I say, it's not the panacea. It's not going to solve it completely, but I think it may be a powerful tool and weapon to help us address it and help our communities deal with this for decades to come.
Councilor Falk.
I just wanted to make it clear to the public, and correct me if I'm wrong, that these attorneys will not charge us a fee. They only make money if we make money, so they front all the costs.
It is based upon a contingency fee. Normally, these are a third. Their rate, because they have other municipalities and it's larger, will be 25%. You are correct. We pay nothing up front. They will front the costs. They will share those costs with other municipalities, the cost of retaining medical experts and experts in the field, costs for doing deposition, and cost of preparing and going forward. We pay those back only if they're successful in recovering either a settlement with the pharmaceutical companies or recovering a verdict in court, and then we would be responsible to repay that. That is correct, and that's a very important point. Also, we're going to get Councilman Sakala had made a very good point about we want updates monthly. We want to know what the expenses are for other communities, what our share is. They're also willing to come back and update us from time to time when the council, as important milestones in the litigation occur, they are more than willing to come back and brief the council whenever we request it.
All set? Councilor Nolan.
How is this different from a class action lawsuit?
That's an important distinction. A lot of times class actions where they bring in nationally law firms, they get thousands of plaintiffs or persons making the claim, and then it goes into federal court and then it's stayed. And you have really very little control over it. Small amounts are, if there is recovery, it's divided among a large group and you have really no control over your litigation. These individuals are taking it in state court for individual towns. It is not a class action, so that we will not be part of that. So we will be able to continue on until they believe they get a settlement that is great for Enfield, our community. New Haven may have a different set of requirements, or Springfield, but we're not tied into a group that we have no control or say over the litigation. So it's a big distinction.
Councilor Bosco.
I don't know. I have a hard time with this one. I don't know which way I'm going to vote. The problem is I know what we have for issues, and a lot of people, but a lot of the people weren't on OxyContin when they became addicted on something. The big thing that I fear is, we keep going after these pots of money, and eventually the drug company's going to say, screw that, why am I going to bother making something that helps millions of people? It took down a lot of people, but when someone had a surgery in there and a real lot of pain, it also helped them. When is it that we take responsibility for ourselves? You're supposed to get off them in X amount of time, and you get off them, and people don't. And it's not that I'm turning my back on the problem. I really just have a big problem going after people for things that people do at will. No one told them to take that OxyContin. And when they did, they were supposed to stop taking that OxyContin. And the problem is, again, if a business keeps getting sued and they keep going after them, they're just going to close up or not bother investing in different type of drugs that are going to help people. You watch these advertisements for these lawyers all the time. If you were taking this pill and that pill and you have this problem, sue and we're going to get money. Well, the problem is, how many people did it do good for? And most of the time they had warnings on things. Until the vote, I'm still going to be up in the air on this one. But if it is a no vote, it's because of that. And if it does pass, even no matter which way I vote, I hope that we designate the money to go just to addiction services in town for people to help the people that are here, trying to get them dried up, get them into rehabs, do what's necessary to try to make them go forward, not just take this money and put it in a general fund. If it does pass, we really need to take that money so it'll help the people.
Well, that was the debate that we had. Specifically, I'll let you speak, but that's why we decided we thought this was a good route, because it's exactly that. It's about actually trying to solve the problem. It's not about money going into the general fund. It's about, again, trying to be on top of it. And again, I agree, people make choices, and you should be responsible for your own self-will and your choices. But when you flood the market the way they flood the market knowingly and overprescribed on purpose, again, it's about trying to get public policy to actually help solve the problem. That's what this is about.
I can only add, because I think, Joey, you weren't at the meeting for the presentation. I think that was a concern of many of the counselors. I'm not going to divulge what we talked on other matters in executive session, but in general, the gist of the litigation and the basis for it addresses your issue, which was a question. And I think what it shows is the pharmaceutical companies misrepresented the addiction rates of the drug. They do have studies apparently showing that all of the addicts and heroin overdoses, they all started on the prescription drugs, which were overprescribed, both for purposes that weren't really requiring opioids, but also the length of it, the amount of it, and I think that that's probably the basis of why they may be held accountable. I think in regard to worrying, if you've watched the 60 Minutes or some of the shows the billions and billions and trillions of dollars that the pharmaceutical companies have made from this. They're in no risk, I think, regardless of what the courts do of being in jeopardy. I understand research and development, we want to encourage it. But here, Joey, the claim is at least that what they did is they misrepresented the addiction rates. They then misrepresented to doctors on their continuing legal education and at seminars that they should be prescribing huge amounts of opioids for a lot of different illnesses or even dentists that never had been prescribed before, and they knew that they were addicting people. And they think in the litigation are going to show that it was much more than innocent. It wasn't done for a good purpose. It was done really for a sales purpose. And they have a lot of salespeople that have come forward as whistleblowers to say, you know, in regard to, I think one of the most startling things, and this has been recounted by a senator nationally, on one of the doses where they doubled it. It was a spray one of the pharmaceutical companies developed for stage 4 cancer victims, lung cancer mostly, because the morphine didn't work, so they wanted to get them a quick response, so they would spray it in the mouth. That's who it was developed for. Well, they marketed it to everybody, general practitioners, dentists. They then told them to increase the dosage by double, and allegedly their philosophy was hook 'em high, hope they don't die. So I don't know that they're innocent in this, Joe. I think the litigation will show it. But I think a lot of those questions were shared by the council. But after their presentation, I think by the vote, people felt comfortable to proceed because, you know, for all the reasons the mayor said, we're trying to change the philosophy of it, but we also want those monies to go specifically back to the council to designate them for treatment and for addiction going forward, and for the ravages that it's caused to communities. But
you know, I agree with Councilman Kabasco. If we get any money, it does go to treatment. I think the other thing too, it's from a public policy perspective. To your point, all roads of destruction lead with good intentions. And the worry here for me as well, and again, I know I'm maybe way ahead of the game, is the same arguments will be made with medical marijuana at some point. Again, because they're prescribing because we want to help people, and I mean that's a great reason to do this stuff. That was the original when they did the painkillers. Now we have issues. So if I look at this from public policy, that we're going to be in front of it as much as we can, because again, we want to make sure we have the public policy debate, and that's really what the most important thing to me is. And again, I only want to say in closing, this is exactly what we asked for staff. You guys are listening to the debate that's been going on between council, whether it be on the council or at the budget meetings, and you folks, Dawn did it earlier with her presentation, and you, I know you pushed this. You're hearing the debate, you heard the concerns of council folks, and you went in a different direction. So I give you credit for actually going and kind of working through Scott and Scott, because you heard the concerns we had originally when we had that first group in there, when I don't think any of us bought what they were selling. So we appreciate the fact you're actually listening to the debate that we're having as council folks.
And one thing I'll say is, as I say, I'm not familiar with these attorneys, but they're international. But they started, one thing I like their tie is that it started with the sole proprietor, Mr. Scott, out of Colchester, Connecticut, and that's where they have their home office, but they've expanded to around the world. And they've worked with many, many municipalities, Joey, firefighters, police across the country on a lot of big cases to bring justice to towns and to those kind of groups. So, as I say, I had no previous experience with them, but I thought they made a heck of a presentation. It's something we wanted you to hear and be able to make an informed decision, whatever it is. I think everybody will respect it one way or the other. It's just an opportunity and a possibility if you're inclined to do it. It's there, and for all the reasons everybody has stated, if you decide not to do it, there's no shame in that either.
Very good debate.
One more.
Yep.
I've heard the discussion about money going to address addiction services. It doesn't say anything about that in here. Will we need a separate resolution for that to happen?
No. I mean, if there's a recovery, it's going to come to the council, and you, as you do with all the other funds of the town, you will decide where they go. I think the indication is...
But they may not go to solving the opioid crisis. They may go in the general fund to pay for trucks.
Well, that'll be...
Unless it's a resolution.
Yeah, well,
it doesn't have to be this one.
I hope we have that problem, and if the time comes, I think you can pass the resolution, but I wouldn't count our chickens before they're hatched. This could be for years down the road, and it may all be for naught, but I think it's the right thing morally. If you choose to do it, I think you're in the right, and we hope for the best.
Yeah, the only issue is that maybe none of these 11 people will be sitting here when it happens, and they may have a different philosophy.
Well, I don't... I don't even know if you can.
Well, we could.
I don't even know if you can
pass a
bind.
resolution saying
No,
that goes.
no, because they could reverse that resolution if they wanted. You're going to have to trust that whomever's there in the future. I mean, you can't bind future councils in matters like that. So the money, if it hopefully comes forward, it'll be left to their good judgment to decide what to do with it. And hopefully, some of you will be there to remind them.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah, one more. So,
Councilor Bosco?
No, he answered my question.
Okay. Councilor Arnone?
So with that being said, we're tracking all the money that we spend today also. So with EMS, with police, with Narcan, somebody's got to be holding all these receipts for the day that comes through.
What will occur as soon as, if you authorize the town manager to sign it tomorrow, we will send them that information because there are deadlines coming up in Connecticut State Court, and they are going to come back with their representatives to talk to the appropriate department heads and get those records. They've done it in the other communities. They're aware of what they need, and we'll facilitate that with them. But they have a program in place to garner the information about what costs they need for the lawsuit. So they will do that.
Thank you.
Councilor Denny?
Will our fire services be involved?
Well, I think to the extent that they've had, cost of, during the day for medical and whatnot, that, they'll be talking to them as well to get their expenses, I would imagine.
Hearing no further debate, roll call, please.
Councilor Bosco.
With heavy heart for yes.
Councilor
This is a
Sakala.
no-brainer, yes.
Councilor Casati.
Yes.
Councilor Davis.
Yes.
Councilor Denny.
Yes.
Councilor Falk.
4.
Mayor Ludwig.
4.
Councilor Muller.
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
4.
Councilor Ungary.
4.
Councilor Arnone.
4.
There's 11 in favor, none against, and no abstentions.
Item P, resolution appointing acting town manager. Be it resolved in the courts of Chapter 4-2, the Enfield Town Council does hereby appoint Christopher W. Bronson as acting town manager for a period of 90 days, effective midnight, May 29, 2018, through 11:59 p.m., August 27, 2018, prepared by the town manager's office.
So moved.
By Councilor Arnone, seconded by Councilor Crissati. Any discussion on the motion? I'll just say thank you for stepping up to the plate, and we appreciate it. This is a big help for us as we have a national search. And again, we appreciate your service to Enfield.
Well, it's my honor, and I just hope to be of service to the council and all of our fine, dedicated town employees, and moving forward to continue to give the best services to the citizens of Enfield, hopefully efficiently and at the best cost we can, given these economic times. But I look forward to it, and thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, sir.
For the comment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just prepare for a large inbox, because I go to a lot of meetings and I share a lot of stuff.
I only ask for money, so.
Councilor Arnone?
So you're going to sit in on any of our budget stuff, too, to give you some of our deliberations? It would be probably kind of nice to see the process with us, too.
Yes. I've talked to Brian, so he's sharing it with me. I unfortunately have a family funeral tomorrow, but he'll update me, and then the others, I'll look at the schedule to see which ones I can come to, but Brian and I were going to share all the information back and forth as it proceeds.
Roll call, please.
Councilor Bosco. Councilor Sakala.
4.
Councilor Crissati.
4.
Councilor Davis.
4.
Councilor Denny.
Chris Bronson.
Councilor Falk.
4.
Mayor Ludwig.
4.
Councilor Muller.
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak. 4. Councilor Ungary.
4.
Councilor Arnone.
4.
There's 11 in favor, none against, no abstentions.
Very good. All right, item 16, public communications. Would anyone like to speak for the council? Jack Hand went up first. Sorry, Ray. He was quick. He went up.
Jack Sheridan, 7 Buchanan Road. I was on the Charter Committee the last time, and I'm here with some good news. You know, no matter over the years, whether we had a majority Republican or majority Democrat, come budget time, you guys always came through. And it didn't matter. It didn't matter who was in who. You did what I thought was a team effort. And so, and by the way, we've never had to fall back to the original manager's presentation. So that in itself tells us that you guys got along well enough over the years to make it happen. And the other thing is, we do patch roofs in the school systems all the time. We may not put whole new roofs on, but we're always patching them because we're always hearing about leaks and mold and all those things. So those are my concerns, but I wanted to end on a happy note and you know, let it be known that you guys have always managed to try and hone things down. Thank you. Thank you for your efforts again. I meant everything I said at the presentation last time. I know because I used to come to all of those deliberation meetings, and I don't know how you guys, it's just the time you take from your families and everything, it's appreciated, whether it seems like it or not. I mean, I know I have a lot of things, but, you know, when you're between a rock and a hard place, those things happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jack. Appreciate it. Ray.
Hi, guys. Ray Peabody, 370 Washington Road, our Fairtown. On the opioid issues, I greatly appreciate that. Tom, when we did work together, which we do, we tried to tie social services in with the school system. And some of it worked, some of it couldn't because of rules and regulations. But as someone who's taken it recently, I'll tell you what, I had a lot of support. And I have a personal, I can tolerate pain pretty well, but I'll tell you, that stuff is kick-ass. And it did. Just to be brutally honest. Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
Kick butt.
I had to yell at Ed earlier in the year.
All right. Yeah. Anyway, I think it's a great idea. I especially appreciate the fact that you can lock down the funds if and when they do come. That is very good. We have a lot of staff that's dedicated to helping people with these problems. Staff and groups in town that work with people in that. So thank you for that. The other thing is, I really wasn't trying to sit there and be accusatory before. I was just pointing out something I hear. And I'm pointing out for a reason, because I care about you guys, and you guys have worked together, and you can prove it tonight on your votes. I've seen the Board of Ed work together, I've seen the council work together for years. And I know that no one wants to sit there and raise the mill rate. No one wants to make the hard decisions. But the fact of the matter is, it's going to come. And I just want to point out what I hear. And by the way, I'm no one's minion, Tom. I'm really not. Ask Mike. I push back and I shove back. But anyway, that's beside the point. Appreciate the work. You're going to have the toughest couple weeks of the year coming before you. You're in my thoughts and in my prayers. And I sincerely wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. Anyone else like to speak for the council? For the second time? No. Declaring public communications closed. Item 17, council communication. Anything from the council? Hearing none, do I have a motion to adjourn? A motion to adjourn. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. By Councilor Falk, seconded by Councilor Ungary. All those in favor? 11 in favor, 0 against.
You gonna make it Thursday, Donna?